Today we're touring 4 unforgettable homes in the nation's capital. Each of these homes in Washington, D.C. captures the city's unique blend of history, creativity, and character. We begin with a 480 square foot studio where clever design and DIY touches transform a compact space into a maximalist haven. From there, we head to Villa Firenze, the Italian ambassador's residence, where diplomacy and design meet in a grand estate filled with traditional and contemporary art. Next, we visit a 1920s Georgetown home, reimagined with old-world European charm, layered with heirlooms, rustic materials, and modern artistry. And finally, we step inside a vibrant row home where every room bursts with color, joy, and personality. Together, these homes reveal the diverse spirit of Washington, D.C., where history and modern living come together in extraordinary ways. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi Homeworthy, my name's Ashley and welcome to my 480 square foot DC studio. I'm so excited to show you around. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, my name's Ashley. I'm a historian and welcome to my 480 square foot studio in DC. So I've lived here for almost 2 years and it is rent controlled and it's an older building. So I knew that it had great bones, it had great light, and I really liked the space in general. And it had the potential to be more. And so that's what I was really looking for. I was looking for something that was affordable, but also functional. And it was originally just one big room, a studio. And I knew that I could make it more and I could do a lot with it. I didn't really renovate anything. Everything is still renter friendly, but I knew that I could do a lot doing renter friendly projects throughout the apartment. I wouldn't say that I have one particular decorating style. Mainly, I just love color and I love pattern and I love texture. And so I love combining all of that together. And I just kind of started with the giant pink bookshelf. I knew that that was really the statement piece that I wanted, and I wanted to create a built-in feel that would also give me the feeling of having multiple rooms so that my bedroom wasn't in the middle of my living room. And so I started there, and then once I constructed it and I painted it pink, it really just kind of brought it together and inspired me to really lean into the color and kind of that really maximalist, fun vibe throughout the apartment. I have a lot of DIY hacks in the apartment. Almost everything is kind of a hack and something that I did because the problem, or I guess I should say the challenge of a small space is that it is hard to source appropriately sized and functional furniture for. So I definitely have done a lot of IKEA hacking or just kind of furniture hacking in general. I have a closet system in my bedroom that gives me an incredible amount of storage. I have my coffee table that was actually a console table that I cut down to coffee table size because I couldn't find a coffee table that was narrow enough for my space. I do a lot of painting of furniture, of refinishing, adding cool hardware. My bar cart is a really fun IKEA hack that I did using pool noodles to give it a kind of scalloped texture. And so when you're approaching a small space, I hate the myths that you can't use color, you can't use a lot of texture or patterns, that you have to keep it simple. I don't think that's true at all. But I think what you do have to do is keep it really, really functional so that your space doesn't feel overwhelming and like all of your furniture and your items are closing in on you. Welcome to my living room. Obviously, the centerpiece of the room is my incredible pink bookshelf. This is an IKEA hack that I built myself, so I'm very proud of it. And I love the color. I think it sets the tone for the entire room. It's an incredible focal point, which is not the TV, which I really like. And it lets me display my favorite memories, all of my books that I need to reference for work, which is important functionality. And it also provides additional storage, which again is so important in a small space. But I also love to display travel memories, and I do have pictures of myself on display on my bookshelf in my favorite destinations and travel memories. Somewhat controversial on the internet to have photos of yourself, but I feel like, if I was in a couple, nobody would have a problem with me hanging pictures of myself and my partner. So why not? If you solo travel, ladies, put a picture of yourself up. I also keep mementos from my travels. I travel a lot in Italy because that is where I do my research, and so I love to bring little mementos home and memories of my time there. And one of my favorite little things, I study the history of pharmacy in particular, and this is an antique pharmacy bottle from Italy, so I love just having this little piece of history in my space. So you may have noticed that I love chinoiserie, and it's one of the things that I use throughout the apartment to kind of bring all the spaces together and tie everything together. And again, this is just my love of history and art, and I think chinoiserie is absolutely beautiful. And my aunt actually goes to estate sales all throughout Florida and collects these for me. So I love displaying them around the apartment as vases, as storage items. I have them everywhere, anywhere I can put them basically. And I store lots of little bobs in them. This one actually hides all the extra IKEA pieces that you never know what to do with, so form and function. My living room is also where I work and where I dine. It was really, really important in this space for me to have a place to eat and not eat on my sofa. I think that brings, it sounds simple, but in a studio space, that's really, really important to have like a space to do different things so you don't feel like you're always doing everything from your sofa. And it feels very civilized to have a table to eat your meals at. And then I also, of course, work in this space as well. I do have a standing desk that I love, and my favorite thing, which you can't see because it's discreetly stored, is my walking pad. So I love having a place to also work and walk in the apartment. And then finally, I love in my living room is my bar cart, because this was a DIY that I created myself. And one of my favorite things about DIY is kind of figuring out how to recreate something with unexpected items. So the handle is actually a soap dish, and what gives the scalloped effect on the bar cart are actually pool noodles. So I love the problem solving of DIY and coming up with creative solutions for small space challenges. Also, it gives a lot of great covered storage. Inside of my DIY bar cart, the reality of a small space is that furniture often does double duty. So only one half is dedicated to glassware and the other half is storing lots of things that I need it to, that I won't show you because it's a little bit messy. But I do have some beautiful glassware that I love to store in here. And then I also have a candle obsession. So those are stored down there. I did not set out to have a green and pink apartment, which is why I started adding pops of other color. But as I started designing the space, I fell in love with this wallpaper. I think it is just absolutely stunning, and it's peel and stick, so it's renter friendly. It was incredibly easy to put up, and it was just beautiful. I love the little nod to cherry blossoms being in DC, but not kind of being in that obvious DC way. And then I found the matching drapes, and I think they are just absolutely stunning and kind of bring the room together. And I loved the pink and green together. I thought it was such a beautiful combination, and there's just kind of a hint of pink undertones in the wallpaper, and I wanted to bring that out through the room. So I love high-low. Not everything needs to be expensive and not everything needs to be cheap in your space, but sometimes affordable furniture has its place, and especially in small spaces, it's hard to find a good sofa that will fit the space and be attractive. And so this is actually a very affordable sofa from Amazon, and I replaced the legs to bring it up a little so it didn't look quite so inexpensive, and it elevated it a little bit. And then I added some beautiful velvet pillows, because velvet always elevates things, and some throws to just make it look not so Amazon. So I love a little bit of whimsy. I don't like to take myself or my space too seriously, and I found this disco croissant and I just absolutely love it. And when the light hits it, you get this wonderful like disco effect around the room. So have fun with your decor. And my disco croissant sits on top of my DIY coffee table. So this is actually a console table that I cut down to coffee table height. It's almost impossible to find a very narrow coffee table, but I knew I wanted one for this space for comfort and for functionality. And so all I did is I found this burled wood console table from Target, and I just cut it down with my handy dandy handsaw in my apartment. On the other side of my living room, I have my media console that I also DIY'd. This is a very simple IKEA Besta unit that I painted and added some new hardware to, the legs and the knobs. And then with kind of masking my TV, because TVs aren't cute, but they're a reality of life, I created a gallery wall around it to kind of distract. And again, I just love the mixing of textures and different styles of frames. And I have peppered through here some of my artwork, some historically inspired artwork, and some more images from my travels. So this mirror is my true love in life. I wanted an extra large mirror for the longest time, and I saved up for this one. It was definitely a splurge, but I think it adds so much light and space to a small space. Obviously, an oversized mirror is going to do that. And by putting it in the corner here, I love that from any angle in the apartment, you can see more of the apartment, which really gives that illusion of space. And then it bounces light off of my only source of light along this one wall into the rest of the apartment. So it was definitely an investment, but worth every penny. I love it so much. I think a home really comes alive when it feels like you, and it feels like a place that you want to be in. And so I think it just really needs to reflect you and what makes you happy, while also being functional. I'm really, really big on a space being equally beautiful as it is functional, because you do have to really live in it, and a home should be lived in and functional for you and your life. I don't know if I would consider myself a maximalist. I think other people definitely would. I'm not shy of a lot of items and a lot of color. I don't know that I necessarily kind of subscribe to these categories and labels of design. I think you can mix and match, and you can do what you like. So I think in many ways I'm a maximalist, and then in many ways I take inspiration from lots of other different design genres and periods. I actually love living in a small studio. It feels so cozy. I love being in my apartment. One of my biggest fears moving to DC, I'm from Florida originally, where space is not a premium. You get a really big apartment in Florida. And I was really afraid that it would feel like it was closing in on me and I wouldn't enjoy being at home, because I am a homebody. And I actually think I love it more because it feels so cozy. And by putting the time and effort into making the space really functional and comfortable for me, and honestly, it brings me such joy to just look around the apartment and know that everything is a reflection of me and what I love. It's the perfect space to be in, and I love being in it. And so, yeah, I feel like a lot of renters feel like they can't or shouldn't invest in their apartment, but I think the reality for a lot of people, especially in cities, is that they have to live in an apartment. And it can be your space, and it can become a home, and it's a really great feeling. So this is my bedroom. You're probably wondering where I store all of my clothing, shoes, and accessories, and this is it, on display for everyone to see, like the beautiful works of art that they are. I know for many people, open shelving like this seems like a dusting nightmare, but for me, I love being able to see my clothing. If I can't see it, I don't remember that I have it, and I love getting dressed and kind of in my own open air boutique where I can pull all of my clothes, shoes, and accessories for the day. And so looking at it makes me happy. It does require slightly more dusting, but I think it's totally worth the effort. I also have here one of my DIYs that I did that I'm pretty proud of, because I have a headband addiction. It is my love of form and function. I love having something beautiful, but also functions to keep the hair out of my face when I'm working. And so I wear a lot of headbands, and I wanted a system to be able to store my headbands efficiently and beautifully. And so I actually created these out of IKEA spice racks. I changed the hardware to hang them upside down so that it could display and easily hang all of my headbands. So I'm pretty proud of this one. It was a very simple and easy DIY, but really works well. I wouldn't say that I have a favorite headband. I would say I like a statement headband, but I do love when they're jeweled and encrusted or just dramatic in general. They remind me, so this is another callback to kind of my love of history. They remind me of early modern hats and hoods that women would wear, specifically the 16th century French hood. And it's just a beautiful style that I love. So I'd have to say I think my favorite one is this one, because this probably most closely resembles a 16th century French hood, but I do love wearing these. It's a little callback to the past and the history of fashion. And you might notice that many of my shoes look the same. And I would say, once again, it's my love of form and function. These are my favorite shoes. They're from Cezanne, but a couple French companies make shoes like this. And I just love that they're slingback because I don't get blisters, but they also have a little bit of heel for height and they come in lots of colors. And I'm a big fan of patent leather because it scuffs less and you have to walk a lot in the city. So you need shoes that are both beautiful and functional. Another thing I'd love to point out about the closet system is that this is great for renters because it is a tension rod system. It is also modular. So all of the pieces come apart and can work in any space and you can arrange it in any way that you want. And so this has come through 3 apartments with me, and it's been in a dozen different styles and arrangements. And so I knew when I moved into this space that I had these components and I could do creative things with them. So on this wall, I went with more of a dresser setup with storage on top. And then on the opposite wall over here that flanks my bed, I decided to do a little bit more hanging storage and some more accessory storage on top. And this gives me a ton of clothing storage, and so I don't have to worry about my shopping habit. So on this side, I have more shoes and purses. You can never have too many purses. I also have my perfume, my daily perfume, so that it's easy to access and spritz on the go. I have one of my all-time favorite Kate Spade novelty bags, some more artwork that I created, and again, just some more storage. I think in a small space, it's really, really important to have both open and closed storage. Open storage is wonderful, but it is open and therefore always on display and you have to keep it tidy. So you also need a fair amount of closed storage. Another thing that I did to really give myself a lot more storage in this space was I lofted my bed. And you're probably thinking a lofted bed is for college students, but anyone can benefit from a lofted bed. I only had to raise it up about 5 inches, and then I was able to hide that with a skirt. And I was able to slide a bunch of rolling boxes underneath to, again, give me more storage, which is especially good for seasonal clothing or things that I don't access a lot that I really need to have storage for, but I don't really need to pull it out every day. So my bed is one of my favorite spaces in my apartment. 1, because I spend a lot of time making it very comfy and cozy because sleep is very important. But 2, it's a really great space to have fun with texture, pattern, and color, which is what I love. My secret is that I have a white duvet and then I love to switch out the pillows and accessories on top of it. And Rifle Paper Co. is one of my favorite companies. They're from my hometown. They're a woman-owned business, and they do a lot of beautiful illustrations, and their book illustrations are my favorite. So both this blanket and this pillow are Rifle Paper Co. And it's just kind of these whimsical little touches that bring me a lot of joy in my space. And then I love playing with texture and pattern to kind of show off these different little details in the space. And you can never have too many pillows on your bed. I know that some people will not agree with that, but I think it's a great way to have fun with texture and pattern and color. And you will never find me without at least 6 pillows on my bed. From here, we have my beautiful hat wall. As much as I love a headband, I also love a hat. And again, form and function, I needed something where I could see what I have, and I could also store them out of the way where they wouldn't get bent or messed up. And I think they're beautiful, so why not display them? And it's really easy for me to grab a hat and go. And so I do love this little hat wall. I know in the design world, a hat wall can be a little controversial, but again, do what works for you and what you love in your space. My favorite hat is definitely this hat. So there's a funny story behind this hat. It probably looks familiar. Gucci makes a gold papier hat like this that I loved for years. I had it. I think I wore it for 6 years. I wore it into the ground. And I was devastated when they released the new model of it. It wasn't the same. They had changed it and it wasn't as good. And I was in this tiny town in the seaside in Italy, and there was a woman there who handmade hats, and I saw this hat hanging across the room, and I asked her about it. And she said she's been making it for years. And I asked her, will she continue to make it? And she promised she would keep making it. So every few years I go to this little town in Italy and I buy one of these hats, and I wear it all summer long because it's very important to protect yourself from the sun but still look stylish. So next to my hat wall in my bed, we've got my bedside table, and this is another IKEA hack. This is the basic side table from IKEA that I painted and I added cute little lucite knobs to in the shape of a bow. And you know, I've got the practical stuff like my charging station. I've got a few decorative books and a little holder here. And I also have this lamp, which I really love. I get a lot of questions about this lamp. And again, high-low, I think is really important to think about because a ceramic lamp is a ceramic lamp. You can get them, you know, on clearance somewhere at a flea market, but a lampshade, if it's cheap, looks cheap. So I will often spend all of my budget on the lampshade and then thrift something for the base. And so the base of this is just a thrifted ceramic base that I spray painted pink. And then this lampshade is from House of Hackney, which is an incredible wallpaper and fabric company in the UK that I absolutely love. So in this room, I went with a faux grass cloth peel and stick wallpaper in a nice light shade of pink because I thought it would complement the bookshelf well, which is kind of functioning as the other wall in this room. And again, it's peel and stick, so it's renter friendly. And I just love the little bit of texture that it gives. I wanted a little bit more of a serene space in the bedroom because obviously this is where you come to relax and sleep. So I wasn't going to go with a really big, bold all over pattern, but I thought the texture of the grass cloth had a really nice touch to it. And then I hung this piece of art that I actually created. It's just kind of like a chinoiserie illustration that is based on a historical chinoiserie print. So on this side of the bedroom, I have the rest of my El Varley closet system from IKEA. And as I mentioned before, it has all sorts of different combinations that you can do, which is why I really, really like this system. And I went with kind of maximum storage on this side. So this is the real basis of my closet over here. But I also added some more hidden storage and I can hang skirts, blazers, dresses, jackets, and shirts, everything over here, no problem. And I'm still able to access it. It's not the most spacious area, but I was able to squeeze it all into the apartment. So I was really happy that I was able to get this in because this is able to hold the bulk of my wardrobe where I can see it, where I can access it. So I am a big believer that your rugs need to be bigger than you think they need to be. Even in a small space, your rugs need to cover the entirety of your room, and the whole rule that your furniture is supposed to be on all the legs of your furniture is supposed to be on your rug. I do live and die by that rule. And it has helped me when working in small spaces to make them feel more balanced and bigger. And also don't be afraid to cut your rugs, especially if you're in a small, weird space. I actually had to cut this rug, don't tell rifle, but I did have to cut it here along the edge of the bookcase in order to get it to fit. Honestly, it works great for the space, and don't be afraid to cut your rugs. So this was kind of an awkward space in the apartment where the bedroom really ended before the living room began. I had my gallery wall and I wasn't really sure what to do here. I wanted to be careful not to overfill the space, and so I found this stool at Home Goods on clearance, and I kind of just loved the texture and the color. And then I already owned this chinoiserie ginger jar, and so I thought this would be a great way to kind of break up the space. And just the idea is to kind of visually hide the side of this and to transition into the living room space. So I am a historian of early modern Europe, and my area of focus is specifically Italy and the history of science and medicine. And I look at specifically how women collected, produced, and reproduced medical knowledge through early modern recipes. So I look at a lot of really fun and interesting documents written and passed down by women for generations. I take inspiration from everything that I see and come across, but I take a lot of inspiration from just being a historian and looking at historical spaces and places and artwork. And so I love pops of color, I love texture, I love architectural details, and so I try to take those inspirations everywhere I find them, whether it's in the archive or at a museum, into my home. But I try to reinterpret that in kind of a fun, colorful, playful way. So from my bedroom, we have my entryway, which then leads into the bathroom. And the entryway, I really wanted to do something fun with to, again, I think it's really important to separate and delineate spaces in such a small space when you have no rooms to create the feeling of rooms. And so I wanted to create the feeling that this was a separate space. And so I decided to do some painting in here, and I created this really fun scallop. I actually made this scallop with a bowl from the kitchen that I just traced along the wall using a level and traced the top half of it and then painted from the top down. And I really love the way that it turned out. Again, I think it just adds a little bit of fun and whimsy to the space and gives it a distinct feeling. And to match the color, I painted my IKEA shoe storage the same color. You're probably wondering, she has more shoes than what we saw on the shelves, and yes, I do. But this is closed storage because these are the less attractive shoes. So they hide in here. And it's also a place where I can dump my keys and my sunglasses when I get home. And also, of course, I have hooks because one of the biggest hacks in small spaces is hooks. You always need hooks. I added another cute rug into this space for functionality, you know, to just make sure your feet are clean when you enter. And then I did actually add a light up in this space, and this is really interesting. I really just zip tied this to the existing boob light that came in the apartment, and it works great. So, and then from here you lead into a walk-through, pass-through closet, which is really kind of a workhorse of the apartment and does a lot of serious storage for me. I have my hamper, I have my vacuum cleaner, I have my winter coats in the winter. And I've got cleaning supplies, a year's supply of toilet paper and paper towels, you know, just because we're all scarred from when that happened in the pandemic, and all of my bags. And then that leads straight into my little tiny bathroom. And I really wanted to have fun, or as much fun as I could, with this space. It is an old building, so some of the challenges in this bathroom was that there is no vent. And so I really wanted to do wallpaper, but wallpaper in a bathroom with no vent is a disaster waiting to happen. So I decided to have some fun instead, and I found these thrifted, really cheap, I think they're plastic ornate frames that I took samples of wallpaper and I color matched the best I could with some acrylic paint. And I just painted them to create these kind of fun pops of color on the wall, since I'm not able to add a really fun wallpaper. I actually did retile the floor with peel and stick tile. That is not meant for the floor. The packaging was very clear about that, but I figured I was going to try it, and it's actually working really, really well. So I added a layer of painter's tape and then did the peel and stick tile, and then I did caulk everything, recaulk it myself, and added this cute rug on top. Another thing that I did is I had the tile in here is old. It's seen a lot, it's vintage, and it had that kind of built-in, tiled-in soap dish and toothbrush holder that were pretty unattractive. And so I actually found this floating shelf at my local hardware store, and I was able to carve it out and create a hollow in the back, and I just attached it right to the old soap dish, which kind of now acts as the brackets for this shelf. And this is so much more functional for me than the old soap dish and toothbrush holder. I also just attached a new mirror on top of the old mirror, and I spray painted the light fixture gold. And I actually found these floral acrylic discs, and I cut holes in them to kind of act as a little light feature in the space. My favorite part about the bathroom is this really fun, beautiful shower curtain that I found. I think it just adds a lot of color and texture and interest into this small space that I really wasn't able to do a lot with. So at this point, we're in the front of my apartment, where you have the entryway, my closet, and bathroom, and then around the corner you just saw my bedroom. But if you follow me, I'll actually take you to where the kitchen is. So once you walk through my living room, at the other end of the apartment is my kitchen. And I had to make the decision if I wanted the bedroom by the front door or by the kitchen. And I hope you agree that I think the front door was the better option. I don't want my bed to smell like what I'm cooking in the kitchen. So I thought that this layout worked better. And I like that the kitchen is not an open concept in this studio. It is kind of walled off in the back of the apartment. And it's a surprisingly good kitchen for this space. But of course, what I didn't like about it was incredibly beige. Countertops are not what I would have picked. The color of the wood is not what I would have picked. So without doing any kind of crazy vinyl coverings of the countertops, because I really don't think that that's super practical and functional, I wanted to see if I could kind of change the tone and color of the kitchen through just adding other colors. And so I added this really fun peel and stick backsplash to this side of the kitchen, and then to this side of the kitchen is where I really had a lot of fun. I added this fun citrus wallpaper, this beadboard and chair rail, and this pop of green, and some floating shelves, again, to display some more beautiful items, and then this cart to add some more functionality. Obviously, there's always an issue of storing pots and pans in small little apartments, and so this was kind of my solution for that. So the floor was one of my favorite solutions because, again, I worried about doing peel and stick tile on a kitchen floor. It just gets so much traction, food, water, everything falls on it, and I really think you need to be able to clean it well. And so I actually found this company that does these vinyl floor, basically carpets or mats that they call them, and they are perfect. And they just had one that happened to be perfect for this space. And so there's no peel and stick, it just lays flat on your existing tile, and I think it gives a great look. It looks like tile, but it's super, super functional and easy to clean, and it covers up the old, not so cute tile perfectly. Another thing that I did to add a little bit more personality and just fun into this space was I have been able to find pastel kitchen appliances, which is not as hard as you might think it is. So I love adding these little touches. And then I did find this pottery, again, kind of a callback to my love of Italy. This one says mangiamo, let's eat. This one says ciao bella, and this one says mangiamo again, which is just super fun and cute. For me, home is my sanctuary. Home is where I go to recharge from the world, where I can be myself and be comfortable. So I know for many people, home is hosting and bringing people into your space, but I think for a lot of people, home is that really personal space where you need to go to recharge and to just get ready for whatever's coming next in life. And so for me, that's really, really important to just have this space to come home to be a homebody, to watch my favorite movies, to work from home when I need to and it's comfortable, to have, you know, my travel memories on display, to have artwork on display, to have my books nearby. All of that just is it's my safe place, it's my happy place, it's my home. Thanks, Homeworthy, for stopping by. This was so much fun to show you around my 480 square foot studio apartment, but it's time for you to go because I have another DIY project waiting. Bye.
Buongiorno, Homeworthy. I'm Mariangela Zappia, the Italian ambassador to the US, and welcome to the Italian residence.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Well, my name is Mariangela Zappia, and I'm the Italian ambassador in the US, living in this beautiful residence, Villa Firenze. I came here in July 2021. We were still in the middle of the pandemic, so it was an interesting time to change place and to get adjusted to a new place, challenging times. And since then, I have been running, working together with my team, to improve as much as possible the relation between Italy and the US. So this house was built in the 20s, between 1925 and 1927, by the first owners, Colonel O'Brien and his wife. That was the time when many houses in Washington, D.C., private houses, were built in this style, which is a Tudor, an American Tudor if you want. So you have, the big windows, the very, very tall windows, a little bit austere from the outside. In 1930, this house was the residence of the Hungarian ambassador for a brief time. And then it was bought by Colonel Robert Guggenheim and his wife Polly, and it's them that named it Villa Florence, because Florence was the name of the mother of the colonel. And when we bought it in 1970, in the middle of 1970s, we decided to rename it as Villa Firenze, so we Italianized the name that was already there. In the end, it's a private home. It's not a grandiose residence like some institutional palaces. It's a private home. It's a large private home, But so you have typically a dining room, formal dining room, but then you have a space where you can have a smaller lunch or dinners for small groups. You have a grand salon like this one. You have a very imposing entrance hall that really is the core, the center of these two arms, if you want, on the right and on the left that develop the house. And I have to say, in this residence, I have lived in few residences before, but in this one I really wanted to do something different. And so we conceived together with my team a project that is called Villa Firenze Contemporanea, so contemporary Villa Firenze, which is the whole idea of bringing into this very classical, a little bit austere residence a touch of Italian contemporary art. And so you will see around the house there are many pieces of art and design, all conceived from 1950s onward. And this is, Italy seen as a place for art, contemporary art. Usually the American public knows more our past than our present. And with that, we also wanted to bring this image of an Italy that has been developing a different kind of art. It was really a research on, we got in touch with artists, if they are still alive, with foundations, with the families, with museums, and we sort of tried to choose what is really representative of Italian contemporary art after the Second World War, what we call the Republican period, because this is when Italy became a republic. We were a monarchy before. And maybe we looked for artists that either had a special relation with the US because they have lived here, or because they were influenced, or because they themselves influenced some period of the American art. So we are in the entrance of this residence. As you can see, is quite monumental. But this is a place that is a sort of in-between, between the outside and the real entrance hall. So what we did here, we asked an artist, and actually these are two artists, Bertozzi and Casoni, to conceive a piece that was welcoming people inside the house. Typically you have flowers, and this is a beautiful sculpture. It's called Metamorphose Elephant, which is, a metamorphosis of an elephant, and this is the head of an elephant and his eyes that look inquisitively to you. And these are beautiful tulips in porcelain. So we don't have to change flowers. It's beautiful, it's romantic, and I like it really very much. It's something that I chose personally, and I think is perfect here. And let me take you now over here. These are two beautiful and very interesting pieces. They are called Ragazza di Firenze 1, Girl from Florence 1, and Ragazza di Firenze 2, Girl from Florence 2. The name of this house is Villa Firenze, so and is again a very nice coincidence. These are done by a famous Italian sculptor, Ceroli, and it's funny because you have this mix of a very modest pine wood that is painted, but then you have these golden figures, and of course these are a reinterpretation of Botticelli's Venus. So something that is in Florence, as you know, is beautiful, is very symbolic, and we consider them sort of guardians of the house. So the guardians of the house are right here at the entrance of the studio, and you can come with me. This is the ambassador studio, is where normally ambassador work. Is a more formal place. As you can see, we have the Italian flag and of course the European flag, because Italy is a member of the European Union and a founding member. And this is typically the place where, if we have a very formal conversation to have, it takes place here. So here you have pieces of Italian design and Italian art. This is Groi, and this is one of his erasers, cancellature. He takes a very important piece of literature or very important text like the Italian Constitution, and then he erases the text to leave only few sentences that are symbolic for him or for the reader if you want to see something in those sentences. And so these are two really beautiful chairs, iconic Italian design. They are produced by Cassina and the designer is Bellini. You can find you find them everywhere. You find them in MoMA, for instance, in New York. And by the way, I think MoMA consecrated an exhibition to him in 1987. Iconic Italian design. This is Piero Fornasetti. As I told you, that's his Groi. So if that was the ambassador studio, and typically the ambassador was a man, this is the wife of the ambassador studio, or the owner of the house, the woman or the owner of the house. And I like it very much. We put it this beautiful painting from Carla Cardi. Carla Cardi is one of the most prominent female Italian artists of the Republican period. This is a painting of 2011. And very recently, the Galleria delle Esposizioni in Rome had a very big exhibition of Carla Cardi. And we put Carla Cardi together with these vases that are Seguso vases, so it's Murano, classical Murano glasses. And in that corner, if you turn the camera a little bit, I like very much this piece of furniture. Is Armani Casa. The details of this piece of furniture are really, really incredible. The materials, the way it was crafted is really, really beautiful. What I like of how the house is now is this eclectic style. Eclecticism is putting together different styles, different times, different materials, and find an harmony. And this is exactly what I hope we were able to do with Villa Firenze. We were, of course, helped in this a lot, particularly by Renata Cristina Mazzantini. She is now the director of the National Gallery of Modern Art in Rome. She's a friend, and she helped us really conceiving the project, choosing the artist, going to them, ask if they wanted to participate in the project, and then together also with my team, Giuditta, Francesca, we started seeing where these pieces could be located in the house. Very good. So from the entrance, we get into this big hall. And this is a very versatile place. We tried really to make it a place, that really push you to conversations also. So it's a place where we have cocktails, but also we sit on this beautiful couch by Edra Binfaré. And you can have all sorts of conversation, from very light conversation to work conversation. It happens that when we have delegations, for instance, for a visit, we sit here and we start talking about what we want to achieve during a visit, for instance. The challenge of this place was to mitigate a little bit the austerity of the hall, because this is like a church. If you look at these incredible windows, how tall they are, and then, you know, the balcony, the stairs, everything is quite austere, stiff in a way. So we wanted to break this, and we did it through the circular movement of Edra sofas, and by bringing modern pieces of art. And so you have, for instance, there these two white pieces. It was the time of white, Castellani there in 1960s, Scheggi 1970s, and we started doing this mix between modern and antique. And so, for instance, we put those two white pieces under Murano lightings, and these are Murano from the 18th century. And of course, Murano, as you all know, is Venice, and is really this special way of treating glass, and is, I do say, hand-blown glasses. So, and it's beautiful if you go there and you see how they do object from blowing into the glass. Is just magic. You can create all sorts of forms. And of course, Murano is still producing beautiful glasses. And in this house, you can find very classic one, like these two, actually these four, the big chandeliers in the living room, but also modern glasses, like some of the vases and the very big chandelier that we will see in the Winter Garden. This part is incredible to me. This is an incredible piece of art from Piero d'Orazio. It's difficult to explain how beautiful it was to install it, because it came, we knew it was big, we knew the dimension of it, but then when we finally were able to put it up, it went straight perfectly in between these two decor of the wall. Actually, someone that was there at the moment started crying because it was just perfect. The colors, the chromatism, and Piero d'Orazio lived in the US for a long time in New York. And what I find interesting is that in the same hall, you have d'Orazio, who lived in the 80s for a long time in New York, and then on the other side, over the fireplace, you have another Italian artist with a very German name, Rudolf Stingel, because he comes from this part of Italy that is at the border with Austria. He's living now in New York, and he, is beautiful and is very successful. So this room, to me, is really where the eclecticism of the house expresses itself in the best ways. So, as I was telling you, this is a Tudor style, Tudor American, and typically in these houses there were, in the big one, an organ, and you can see there are the pipes of the organ, but then the actual instrument is right here. And I don't know how to play an organ, but it works. Is original from the 1925 when the house was built. Then when we bought the house, the organ was really in disastrous conditions because of a fire that half destroyed the house in the 40s, I think. And so we restored it to its actual state. And you can see it there, talking about, again, the eclecticism of the house. That's a really iconic piece of Italian design. It's called Taccia by Castiglioni. And is the idea that you can use industrial pieces like the base and then transform it in something else. I attended university in Florence. Florence is my city. By the way, that's an incredible coincidence. Florence is home for me, and I live in Villa Firenze, so it's a nice coincidence. So I was in Florence. I was studying international relation, political science, and little by little I got exposed to international issues and global issues, multilateralism, and I found it fascinating. And frankly, I also started feeling that Florence was, a little bit too small, that I wanted to explore, not only Italy. I have, lived in many places in Italy because of my father's career. He was a military, so we were following him. And so Italy is not a secret for me. The world was, and at that point I understood I wanted really to work abroad, but at the same time I understood that the perfect things would have been to work in an international environment for my own country, to represent my own country, to defend the interest of my own country. And this probably comes also from my father and this sense of service for the country, which is beautiful. Is still today is what, after 40 plus years, the thing that pushes me every day in what I do. I feel the responsibility to be a sort of model in the way it's possible for a woman to become the Italian ambassador in Washington, as it was to be the Italian ambassador in NATO, in the UN as a first, is also a big privilege. But again, I try to really always remember that it was not so easy, and that it's important for young generations to have, models to identify with or to be inspired from. And so I take time, for instance, to talk to young generation of women that, are considering the diplomatic career, but of course are also concerned because it's a career that is difficult from a personal point of view. You move all the time. If you have kids, they change school, it's a little bit more difficult than living your entire life in one place, in your city, going to school, with all your friends from kindergarten to graduation. I try to show how beautiful it is, how women are good at diplomacy, I think. There is a touch, there is a flexibility, and there is the famous sixth sense. So I think we are, generally speaking, maybe a little more perceptive to, underlying signs and yeah. So here we are in the dining room, a beautiful room where we entertain a lot of people, of course, and it's a pleasure to do it. And again, we tried to mitigate a little bit the austerity of the room with some beautiful pieces of contemporary Italian art. And you have there Boetti, 1980s, more or less. And here, one of my favorite pieces in the house is a Fontana from 1959 with this orange color and this very famous cutting of the fabric of the piece. And it's really about the moment you cut the canvas, how the canvas shaped after the cut is very intellectual, very beautiful at the same time. I like to sit here because I like to enjoy it. It's really beautiful. And so here is a table. We are going to have a dinner this evening. And of course we have, again, Murano glasses. These are glasses made specifically for Italian residencies abroad. They are beautiful because they are all different, handmade. You can see the form is not exactly perfect, light. It's just a pleasure to have them in the hands. We don't do 10 p.m. dinners. we stayed with American hours, so typically 7:30, maximum 8 o'clock. And what is about Italian food, of course. So it's we don't serve anything that is not Italian, from the recipes to the wines. The water is Italian. Everything we tried as much as possible to really give an example of what we identify as this incredible culinary tradition of the Italian food. I'm a foodie, so I have many different things that I love. I love pasta, which is very Italian. I try not to eat too much, but I love pasta. And typically we try to serve an Italian lunch or dinner, which is typically a first course with a pasta, a second course, and then a dessert, and depending on what we're eating, red and white wine or red or white. So that's quite typical. The chef of the house, Roberto Grazioli, I think we're going to meet him later, does everything in the house. So the pasta is homemade, the sauces are homemade. As much as possible, we really try to have everything that we eat in the house made in the house itself. The bread, the pasta, as I said, all the ingredients. Let me bring you where it all happens, the kitchen. Please come in.
Signora Ambasciatrice, buongiorno, come sta?
Roberto Grazioli is the chef of Villa Firenze. He's really, how can I say, he's really the heart of Villa Firenze because he's the one preparing all these beautiful lunches, dinners, breakfasts, receptions. And Roberto does everything in this kitchen, from the bread to cakes, simple cakes, more elaborate, and of course all our menus for lunches and dinners. Homemade pasta. Roberto is really a column of Villa Firenze, right?
Grazie Ambasciatrice, grazie mille. Thank you very much.
Was this, and tell us, Ambassador Zakia, do you come down here for a late night snack?
I do, in fact. I have a kitchen upstairs where I'm supposed to leave, interesting thing to eat. But since I'm never there, I sneak in during the night, and if there is the cake, I might take a little piece of it. So, yes, this is the treasure place of the house.
Well, we try to actually have the best coffee from Italy. It doesn't matter. We buy the best, and so we perform for our guests. We try to do the real espresso, Italian espresso, so which we care a lot to deliver the best Italian food and drink as possible we can.
You want to try?
Sure, absolutely. So in Italian we have just normal espresso. So I know in America there's double shot or single shot. I make 2 espresso, one for madam and one for you. Okay. So important is to press it. And we have our Italian china. This is the way that it should drip slowly. It shouldn't run, and takes roughly 20 seconds. Perfect. Et voila.
And then what's the right way to take espresso? Do you take sugar?
I don't.
I don't.
I don't, because the real espresso, has to be really, you have to feel the smell, the taste, originally as it is. You have to know that while we love to spend time at the table, and we can have lunches and dinner that lasts forever because we like to be together, our breakfast is quick. Our breakfast, typically in Rome, in Milan, people go to a bar. They don't sit. They take an espresso. They can ask you espresso done in many different ways, in a porcelain cup, in a small glass, hot with milk, cold milk, but is done very, very quickly. You have, 10 people at the same time asking for the espresso. The guy at the bar or the woman at the bar is super quick in doing it. If you go in the same bar, they know what you want, so your espresso is already ready, waiting for you. And we typically do it by standing. We don't sit, and then we go to work.
And then you have a cappuccino not in the morning, like is that in the afternoon? Because I think
Never.
there's coffee.
Never in the afternoon.
Never.
A cappuccino is the morning. It's very rare for an Italian to have a cappuccino after lunch. Is really, and certainly not after having lunch. And this is very American. Very often, American guests ask for a cappuccino at the end of a meal. No, for us it's not.
You have espresso?
We tend to, Richard, who's there, Richard is really another column of the house, very often says, "Are you sure you want a cappuccino? Because it's not the right time to have a cappuccino." It's a question of education too. You can see here we put this beautiful picture, and if you come here with me, you have a marvelous Sophia Loren and a very poetic Marcello Mastroianni. They were, the couple of Italian actors that really made history in the Italian movies and cinema traditions, and of course Sophia Loren is a big star also in the US. Marcello passed away. Sophia, 91, 92. She's still around. She's still beautiful.
Have you met her?
Yes, in Geneva. Yeah.
What was that like?
Oh, it's an emotion because it's really an icon, and she's still beautiful, very gentle, super sophisticated woman, very intelligent. Yeah. An icon. So we are in the middle of Rock Creek Park, right? It's a national park. I know it's the largest private park in Washington, D.C. It's 22 acres, so it's quite big. And you will see it's very beautiful because of how it's shaped. It's really marvelous. And you feel surrounded really by Rock Creek. We are a little bit isolated from the downtown, from the institutional buildings, but frankly, yeah, it's a nice place where to be. And really, this is the Italian house. And as I was saying, American friends come here very, they are happy to come. There is an Italian touch to whatever we do here. From our furniture, how we decorate, our kitchen, of course, Italian food, the way we like to entertain people, which I think is very specific of our Italian culture. We like to have, many people at the table. We like to have conversation more or less loud. We like to live together with our friends, and very often we solve a lot of issues at the table. So this is a place where, maybe in a less formal way, you address issues that are maybe difficult to address in a normal office, in a normal formal setting. So it helps a lot our activity. So we are now in one of the two verandas of the house. This is where we have, small breakfast and lunches, more private. Is a very beautiful space. It puts you really outside, but you are protected. And what we did here, we tried to, again, to mix styles. So the big piece in this room is this chandelier designed by Joe Ponti, the famous architect that, by the way, did many things also in the US. It was designed in the 60s and is a peacock, basically. It's called pavone. And you can see that the light are, if you look at the feather of the peacock, there are like eyes. And this is the idea, to replicate that. It's a beautiful piece, really. So modern design, beautiful design, very old pieces of separation, if you want, from one environment to the other, from one place to the other. Pietro Ruffo, a younger Italian artist that plays with collages, old maps, and we found that it really calls the outside. So again, there is a dialogue between pieces in this room and the house itself and the garden. In reality, when you live in the house, you don't have the impression to live in a museum. You just have the impression to live in a place with beautiful pieces. Beauty is everywhere, and this gives you happiness. But then, of course, the whole purpose is really to have the opportunity to introduce a different art than one that Americans are always exposed to, which is our, Renaissance, and that's really what Americans know about Italy: Baroque, Renaissance, the old, the Roman, and so our classic art. The idea was to introduce them to more contemporary pieces. So if you want, then each of these pieces play a role as in a museum to showcase something. But it has to be intentional. But very often, people just stop, and look at a piece and they ask what it is. And that gives you an opportunity really to talk about Italian contemporary art and design. So the purpose is indeed similar to when you go to a museum and visit an exhibition, but for the people who are inside like me, you forget and you just take the beauty of all it. And then we get into this small place, the Rotunda. I love it, very romantic. Here you can see, the south, the north, the west, and the east. And you have all the astrological signs on the ceiling. And on the walls, beautiful, really incredibly beautiful paintings by Ventrone, another incredible Italian contemporary artist. And we get into the Grand Salon, where, the central pieces are, of course, the mirrors. These are 4 mirrors from the 1700s. And what is interesting is that when I got into the house, these mirrors were, all the gold was very dark. Clearly they needed some restorations. And what we did, we hosted a couple of times for a month, almost graduate from a restoration institute, a restoration university, I don't know how to call it, La Scuola del Botticino. 4 girls, 2 times, they stayed here and they restored to the perfection these mirrors. As you can see, there are also painting in the top part of the mirrors. And I remember once I was getting home from office and I hear shouting, there is a boat, c'è una nave, and it was that mirror there. And you can see on the top, in the painting, there is a small boat on the right. And they just founded the boat by restoring it. It was all dark. Again, it's a very flexible place. You can use it as a normal living room, sitting and having a conversation, or we can empty everything, so we take off the sofas. It becomes a really large space, and we can have from dinners for 100 people, 120, with round tables or long tables, or we can have cocktails. I think the biggest that we have is around 400 people, but I can tell you when you have 400 people is a lot. It's really, but it's nice, it's very popular. Sometimes we do things that really attract people of all different environments. We have the outside also that is beautiful, so in nice weather we use a lot also the outside and the terrace. This is a place where you have head of states, prime ministers, Nobel Prizes, Pulitzer Prizes, incredible scientists. It's really, the big privilege is really to be able to put together the best of what Italy is in all different environments and sectors. And I can tell you just one name. There was here, for instance, a conversation shortly before Henry Kissinger left us, and it was a conversation with our Prime Minister. So again, an example of how we wanted to mix a classical classical living room with something different, contemporary. And here you have this corner where you have a beautiful piece of art by Burri, 1969, I think, is a reinterpretation of an apse. Beautiful lamps from Armani Casa, of course, Poltrona Frau here. This funny, very funny table, coffee table by Capellini. So again, the mix of object, arts, moment in history. Under these incredible mirrors, you have the Chirico, a beautiful sculpture called the Archaeology, 1969, like the Burri on the other side. And as we walk, going towards the other veranda, this is a really very particular, very beautiful sculpture from Consagra. It's very rare because it didn't do much of white pieces, and this fits perfectly again in the living room. It's a sort of I don't know. It's very romantic, and it's very, very beautiful. And through here we go to the other veranda, sort of winter garden. And this is a place where I really love to stay, to be, and to spend time. Sometimes when I have, during the weekend, hours for me, I sit here. We sit here with my husband, our dog, and we just cool down. And we read, we talk, we listen to music. It's really a beautiful place, and you are already basically in the middle of the park. And here too you have, iconic pieces. This is Chimera, this beautiful lamp. Very simple, it's plastic, but beautiful, by Artemide. You have a chandelier. This is Murano again, so again glasses, but modern. It's a contemporary piece, which is in contrast with what we saw there in the living room. Yes, and I like also this piece. It's called The Artificial Colors of the Ocean. Behind the idea of Cristina Finucci, another Italian woman artist. The idea is to save the environment, and as you can see, these sculptures are done with cups, bottle caps, that were recuperated from the ocean or the seas. It's very decorative, but also very meaningful. And staying on the colors, if you follow me, this is a beautiful piece by Gaetano Pesce. Gaetano Pesce was, he passed away recently, an icon of Italian design, and by the way, with the colors of the Italian flag. My day starts quite early, and this is because we have a time difference with Rome of 6 hours. So typically I wake up around 6 o'clock, 6:30 I start with my coffee reading the press, the Italian press, the American one, and then talking to Rome. If there is something that we need to discuss, is the right time to do it. And then typically I try to exercise, because that's so important also to keep our body healthy, and it keeps you going the full day. And then basically I go to the office and I start working with my team, and we go from meeting people in the administration to really conceiving projects. I travel a lot in the United States, of course. We have, a big network of consulate all over the US. We have 10 consulates. We have 5 cultural institute, trade institute. I mean, it's an all network of Italian presence in the US, where I try to go regularly. And then it's an opportunity to meet people in other states and to get out of the Washington bubble. So here we are in this beautiful park. We are in the middle of Rock Creek Park, a national American park. And what can I say? It's just majestuous. It's an incredible open space. And you can see here another piece of Italian art. This is a lioness. We chose a lioness and not a lion. And she's walking towards the house. And together with the artist, Davide Rivalta, we chose that place because it's next to this beautiful tree. She's walking towards the house. She's not threatening at all. She's coming to the house like a protector again of the house itself. I love it. As I told you, this is the largest private park in Washington, D.C. It's 22 acres. Is beautifully landscaped, and we are lucky because the wisteria is blossoming. So this is the terrace. Another perfect place to receive our guests, to enjoy the company of our guests. We will have an egg hunt, exactly. This is something that we have started with me in 2022. Is fun. So we have plenty of kids, everywhere, and they have to find the eggs in this very large space. It's not easy for them. It's a lot of fun, and we do it together with Ferrero because Ferrero produced the eggs, and then with what we earn from the tickets that we sell, we give it to an hospital for children for research. So, and it's a very beautiful moment. Yeah, it's becoming a sort of tradition in Washington. What I want people to know about my country is that it's about the thing that you know, the beauty, the style, the design, the history, the tradition, the landscape, and all that. It's about that, but it's also about innovation, technology, creativity. It's really still a country of innovators, of people that invent things, that still have this thirst for knowledge, for progressing, for finding new frontier and to break new frontier. We are advanced, one of the most advanced countries on technology, on innovation that you can find. So there is this part of Italy that sometimes is neglected, not known, because of our past. And in the way we live surrounded by this incredible past. If you think that 75% of the heritage, artistic heritage of the world is in Italy, you can imagine, no? So you live surrounded by this past, but is a country that still looks forward towards the future. Well, home is a place where you can finally relax after, performing all the time in many different ways. You are home and you are. It's not that you are not yourself when you work, but of course is you let down all barriers, and so it's important that you feel, that you are surrounded by a place that you like, that you like. Thank you for coming. This was really a very nice opportunity for me, for us, for my team, for Italy to showcase this residence and what we do with it. Now I have a lunch, a working lunch, so I have to leave you. Thank you again for listening to me and for being with me in this tour of Villa Firenze. So, arrivederci, grazie e a presto. Grazie.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Zoe. Welcome to my home in DC. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Zoe Feldman. I'm an interior designer, and welcome to my home in Washington, D.C. So my husband and I were looking for a new place. We were moving from an apartment. We just had one little girl. She was about 18 months, and I was pregnant also. So we were expanding our family, so we needed to expand our house. And we were sort of looking for a few months, and nothing was perfect. I'm obviously a picky buyer, so I really wanted something with history, something with good bones that I could put my signature look on. And the minute I walked in, I was like, oh wait, this is the place. It had been well maintained. It wasn't exactly my aesthetic, but I knew that the bones were there, and I was excited to get started and knew I didn't have to take it down to the studs, which I was not looking to do, pregnant and with a toddler. The house was built in 1926.
Architecturally, I'm not sure if it's exactly a Wardman, but it is a duplex, which is very common in certain areas in Washington, D.C. So it presents and looks like a single family home, but is actually split in two. Inside, there are many arches. There's like these beautiful, we actually changed the doors to make them iron, but there's these beautiful arched iron doors in our living room, and I repeated that inside of the home. There's a big arch leading into our kitchen. There's an arch leading into our sunroom. So it does have like a very French appeal. I did keep the floors. The floors are original to the home. They are stained a fairly dark color, and they are a bit knotty, chippy, sort of imperfect, but I like that in a home. So that's part of, for me, the appeal of the house, is that it has this sort of like beautiful patina to it. We did maintain that intentionally. So the house does, I think, feel very fresh and relevant right now, but it does have still a bit of an old European feel to it. Okay, we're in my living room. This is one of my favorite rooms. It's where we don't have a television in here, which I love. Instead, we're surrounded by art and objects and things I've collected, things that I've gotten from my family who, as I mentioned, were like very into collecting art and collecting objects and collecting books. And so there's a lot of memories for me in this room. We do a lot of entertaining where we just like drink too much wine and talk too much in this room, and sometimes karaoke. We also have one of my favorite things, which is new. My husband got me a record player recently. So this is a new addition to our home, and I am just constantly collecting records now. That's my new obsession. This is one of my favorite pieces of art in the house. This is an Alex Katz. I received it probably about 20 years ago, and I love it. There's a ton of art books, so I'm hugely interested, influenced, and just in love with art in general, especially modern contemporary. So there's a bunch of Muro books and Chagall books and Katz books and Davis and everyone. And a lot of the pieces that I have accompanying books to go with it. And sometimes I'll read them and sometimes I'll bore my guests and make them read them. When I style, I like it to be collected and to tell the story, but not cluttered. I think it's nice to be able to absorb all the things that we're looking at. So a lot of these pieces up here were my grandmother's. She passed away sadly during COVID. She was a big muse of mine. I'm surrounded by a lot of her pieces. So she collected teapots. So those are some teapots of hers. This little sculpture I got in Paris on a trip. Some of these primitive pieces I also got from my grandmother, and then a bunch of art books. And so I think there's enough to make the space feel warm and complete, but not so much that you become overwhelmed and can't appreciate each piece. This mantle, this lovely, impressive mantle that I got from Chesney's, one of my favorite places to get mantles from in my projects, and I was so lucky to be able to put one into my own home. It's limestone, it's carved, it's incredible. It's probably the saddest thing that I'm leaving here. Like, whenever I decide to not be a part of this house anymore, this will be the thing I will miss most, is this mantle. It's pretty amazing. The mirror is a vintage piece I got from one of my favorite antique dealers in DC, David Bell. He told me it came from one of Warhol's, I guess Warhol's estate in Southampton, but that can't be verified unless you ask him. So, but it seduced me and I had to buy it, of course. There's a rule in design, which is the number of people that can be seated in your dining room must be able to be seated in your living room for obvious reasons, the before and after party. And so I wanted to get more seating in this space. We had the two Platners, we had the Florence Knoll sofas, but I didn't want to cover up this amazing mantle. So it came to me, oh, let's do a huge ottoman. I found like a very affordable ottoman on Cherish and then recovered it in this really beautiful Deodar fabric. And 2 or 3 people can just sort of sit on it and lounge, and it doesn't take up a lot of visual space, but also adds a bit of pattern that I think was needed in the room. This coffee table was actually a piece. I'm lucky that sometimes pieces I buy for clients don't work out, and I end up buying them for my own home, and it gives me a little bit of a push and an edit. And this was one of these pieces. This is a plinth marble coffee table that ends up working out great because it's very low for all of the mid-century pieces. And it also, at night, can double as a karaoke/dance stage for my little girls. So it can be difficult to notice that the walls are actually a very, very, very subtle blue. And these wool window treatments, curtains that I designed with the Shade Store. It's a Holland & Sherry fabric. They did this wonderful collaboration with them, and I felt so excited because I love wool on window treatments, especially in Washington, D.C., where, you know, the weather can really handle it. Anyway, so this blue that's a bit deeper in value to the walls really pulls out the wall color and lets you know that we are, in fact, in a blue room. So this is an interesting story, I think. This is another piece that I received from my family. These are old Baker pieces from, I think, the 50s. And they originally lived in my father's room as a kid, and they were painted blue. And then my mother took them and restored them to what they should and probably were likely originally, this beautiful mahogany, and she topped them with marble. And they fit perfectly into my home. And living in a very vertical home where storage is at more of a minimum than a maximum, having a bunch of drawers, 8 drawers in a living room is clutch. So I don't have a hand and foot fetish, but I do like hand and feet in form when it comes to sculpture. So you'll notice I have these feet that I got at this antique shop that's no longer in DC a long, long, long time ago, and I just fell in love with them. In my entry, you'll see I use hands to put my keys in and my wallet in. I like the form, but I also like the whimsy of it and the sort of quiet, subtle, I guess, humor in it. This is another piece that I love. It's a Helen Frankenthaler, and she's one of my favorite artists. We have, art, female art is at too much of a minimum, and so it's really nice to have a female artist in my home. And then over here is obviously an iconic swimming pool that is a David Hockney. So I love that piece. The simplicity of it, and it has this blue in it, magically, that helps ground the space. And then this piece over here, I love this piece of art. This is a Gene Davis. He actually is part of the Washington Color Story. So living in Washington, I try and place his work in as many projects as I can because I think it's important to have local renowned artists as well. And he typically paints with stripes, and that's a very digestible experience for people. Do you know, I don't know who this woman on the go is. I don't actually know who did that sculpture. My cousin brought it over to me once and as a thank you gift and said, "Here, do you want this?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's dope." That's why she lives here. Again, it's a little bit whimsy and funny and weird. And I think because my house can come off as a bit finished or designed, having these moments of humor and funk help bring out who I actually am as a person, and so helps make my space feel more like me. This pendant is an amazing pendant. It's a gong pendant. They're out of the UK, and they do these beautiful, often silk pendants that are oversized and give the room a little bit more of a feminine edge, where some of the space might feel maybe not quite as soft. So I felt that the space needed the softness and the romanticness of the room. I mentioned that I like to entertain a lot, and that's often in the evening. So we don't have to put any overhead light in. We can dim it. It gives this really soft, yellow, glowy sort of light that helps to create the mood. My favorite room in the house is likely the dining room, which is also the breakfast room, because in a smaller home, there's a lot of task management and multitasking within spaces. And so this is actually where I put this beautiful hand-painted de Gournay wallpaper, which sounds insane since I have a 7 and a 9-year-old, but has actually worked out really well in our home, and I think is just really a testament to how we use our space, that while I surround us with very precious and beautiful things, we don't live in a precious way. I think that's important to understanding, or to understanding how we should probably be approaching our homes, that we aren't afraid to put beautiful things into our home, but we also should be living with them and allowing them to occasionally get a bit nicked, or occasionally, tell your story. And so that's sort of the story of the dining room. I then also did a built-in banquette because we do use the space a lot, and when I had a center table, it felt like we were always negotiating around the table. So by offsetting the table with this banquette, it made it more casual. It gave more space to walk through to the sunroom and to the kitchen. And it's just worked a lot better for our family, and I think is visually more appealing and makes the space feel a bit bigger. Okay, and now we are in what my children call the golden dining room. And this was a room that I honestly didn't fully know how to engage. It's in the center of the house. I wasn't certain if it should be dense in color or light in color. We spend a ton of time here because it's not just our dining room, it's also our breakfast room. And so it's very much the heartbeat of the home. And I thought, oh, you know, this needs a pattern. We have so much art. I knew I was going to build a banquette. I needed to get the dining room table from the center of the room, and I needed to offset it. And so I knew that that was happening. And I thought, all right, there's not going to be a lot of space for art, and I have so much art already, so let's do wallpaper. And then, of course, I fell in love with this DeGarnay wallpaper because it's art. And that felt like such an exciting choice because I could surround myself with a different sort of art, which is, you know, very magical. I hesitated on the gold. I wondered if it would feel like too much, but it's like perfect. And then I built all these wonderful, this banquette and these sort of cabinets next to for additional storage because it's impossible to find storage in these old homes. And so I'm constantly building it in. This amazing light is from my own personal collection with Mitzi. It's the DeVita. It's wicker. It's an unlikely combination with this amazing DeGarnay wallpaper because of its casualness, but I think that is if there were a theme in my home, it would be tension. And so the idea of this very formal paper with a casual light appeals to me. It's organicness as well, and it's oversized. I do like oversized lighting or very undersized. I like playing with scale when it comes to light. The table is this artisan piece that I had made, and it's just big and chunky and a piece of art unto itself. And we draw over it and mess it all up, and that's how I like things. I like things to, you know, it's chipped and it's etched, and that's okay because it's a table and it gets used. And these are these amazing, I think they're Austrian bentwood chairs that I found years and years and years ago and had recovered in a lovely hack, which is a vegan leather, which is also on the banquette, so that, again, my children can paint, which you will find signs of, and it can just basically be washed off easily instead of having to deal with a fabric that you panic about every time you get food or paint or marker or something on. Oh yeah, these sweet sconces are by a company called Huey that are, I thought, just fun and whimsy. Again, I really like mood, and they cast this like beautiful light right onto the paper. Next to these, I use a lot of these Forbes and Lomax switches, which are something that would have been, they're light switches that would have been in the home years and years and years ago and have been replaced with plastic, and we brought them back into the home to offer that sort of heritage feel to the bones. The color of the trim is actually the same color that's in the kitchen. So when I'm playing with color, I like to think about maybe 5 colors and how to reinterpret them. So in an effort to join the kitchen and the dining room together, which are in fact, you know, right off of each other, I brought in the kitchen cabinet and wall color into the trim, and it's called Oxford Stone. It's one of my favorite neutrals, Farrow & Ball neutral. It's a red-based neutral, which I really like because of the glowiness that red-based neutrals offer and the warmth. I chose not to put a rug in my dining room for a few reasons. One is the space is fully offset, and it was a bit tricky to figure out exactly where to end the rug with this big built-in as well. Also, I don't think rugs have to be everywhere. I mean, this is a very used space. We're running in and out of it. The children are doing things they shouldn't be doing. And so it just felt like the natural decision. You know, there's a rug in the living room, there's a rug in the sunroom, and it just sort of felt like, let's just not put a rug here. And it's actually served us very, very well. I would describe my sense of style as, I always say that I'm a modernist and that I do want things to feel relevant and current with classical bones, because as mentioned, I love the history of homes and the storytelling of homes. And I think that it's obviously more exciting to tell the story of a home over time than to be the first storyteller. So sort of the idea of reinventing and reimagining a home that has lived many lives before you. My general aesthetic is, well, I have a lot of mid-century modern pieces, and those are actually family pieces that I acquired, and which is very amazing, and I know very lucky. And so I've been able to work those into the home, and that gives it a little bit more of a modernist vibe. The art is quite contemporary, which works nicely with the tension of the bones of the home. And then there are bits of antiques that help with the tension of the home and the juxtaposition of the home feeling both new and old. Now we're in our sunroom. I think that's what this is called. So this is a funny space. It's the space that most people don't have any idea what to do with because it is so small. So immediately when I saw it, it used to be a trellised room, almost like an homage to Bunny Mellon, which was very sweet, but not my style. And so I promptly removed that, painted it a dark blue, and got it wrong, and put in this arch. Got that right. But what I did get right is immediately I built a daybed with storage, and this houses a television. This is where my children, because it's right off of the breakfast room, dining room, watch TV a lot, tons of games in here, games and puzzles and things in here. And we're actually, the lattice is here because we're hiding a radiator over here, and we need to get the heat from the radiator. So leopard, obviously, fun, needed a fun moment. And then stripes and warm colors on the daybed. And I finally figured out the color this needed to be was a warm terracotta, because it felt, again, glowy off of the de Gournay paper, but also natural to the exterior since there is so much glass. And you'll notice this is a rejuvenation oversized light. Again, this theme of playing with scale when it comes to light. So it is a tiny little room to house this large light, but that's the point. When you experience my house, you really experience a color story. And I think people struggle a lot with how to create color stories, and so they just don't. The default is to just paint everything white or a beige or a putty or a gray. For me, once I found the de Gournay wallpaper, that tipped me off to the color story, and I plucked colors from the paper, not necessarily perfectly matching, but a value of the color. So maybe the paper has a more port tone, and that's how we ended up with a warm terracotta, because if you add a bunch of white, we can kind of get there. So that's what you're seeing. And then the idea of how do you want to experience the home? Each space shouldn't be dark, and maybe each space shouldn't be light. So the dining room's sort of in the middle. This is darker. The living room's very light. And that's kind of how I think about things. I'm always trying to create experiences in the home and people to feel different things in each room. And that goes to how you build like homes that feel exciting and warm and like very usable. So that's sort of how I think about color stories. This is one of the first pieces I picked up, a pair of these from Mrs. McDougall, I think is what it's called in New York City. And I just thought they were so chic and modern and cool while also being vintage. And I used them throughout my house as occasional seating. So for instance, in here, some people aren't comfortable on the daybed, maybe they're older and it's just sort of like too sloppy or too difficult to sit on. And so I put a chair here so to welcome other people. I'll often pull this chair up as well as the one in the living room when we're having a larger dinner party and need to, smush around the table more. The window treatments are just some like really nice, warm white linen shades that I felt were a nice relief from not necessarily the heaviness of the paint, but the density of the paint. We are looking out into like the world, and so it felt like the glass shouldn't have too much competition. So this felt like the right move. It gives privacy while also letting some sun in and not really asking for much. Yeah, and then this sweet little sconce is also a little rejuvenation sconce that it's a nice place to perch and read a book, watch TV. But, oftentimes it's maybe one or two people in here kind of enjoying the feeling of being outside without having to be outside. Not that being outside is bad. I love being outside, but that's sort of the vibe. As far as colors in my home, I'm, I guess, a bit known as a colorist, so it will not be surprising that there will be lots of color in the home. But the way that the color is received and used is different than what might be expected. So in certain rooms, I have done some color drenching, like in our sunroom, we have this like warm terracotta. It's, all glass really, and then a built-in and a day bed. And so it felt like the color should be more organic. In some of the other rooms, like in the living room that I'm sitting in, the walls are a crisp, almost blue. So a white, but with a lot of blue in it. Mixed with some warmer tones like a camel in the carpet. And that's intentional so that we get a lot of warm and cool tones working together. And the color is found in this room in particular more in the objects and the art than in the furniture or the furnishings. Welcome to my kitchen. She is small but mighty. The most exciting thing about this kitchen is the floor that we put in. It's, I guess, some people call it like an Escher, but it's like a bit of a French bistro. It's actually stone, it's marble. It hides everything. It is the piece de resistance in this room. It took me so long to figure out the right color to have with it. It turns out that this Oxford stone, this glowy neutral, red base neutral, is the perfect accompaniment with it. So I drenched the space in it, the plaster hood, the walls, the cabinet, a little bit of relief with the stone, which is just a honed Carrara that I cut directly on and don't act as precious even though it is marble. That is how all of you should be doing it. And then this is a painted brick. So everything has this very old world feel. You can see I have these amazing L'Atelier copper pots and pans that hang beautifully. And that's, how we do it alongside this gorgeous air fryer. But this is sort of how we live. I live with, this is again an old Tiffany pattern that I've had forever called Nature that they discontinued that I love. But all of our stuff is here. It's getting used. Some of it's pottery, some of it's fancy, but all of it's being used every single day. And we leave it out, very easy to get to. I built in some pantries because and stained them walnut, because a nice medium walnut, because we don't have enough storage. And so we have a couple of pantries using a lot of unlacquered brass in the sconces and the fixtures and the ceiling. And then these like amazing, I'm very into Blue Star right now. They're doing these great colored. They use a lot of color, but in this case, I felt that we didn't really want color. We just wanted stainless steel and brass. So mixing metals was the play here. Also the refrigerator. These are my children's heights. So a lot of people are into open shelving and a lot of people are panicked by it. I am into it because again, this is your kitchen. It is not precious. Use it. It is much easier to grab a plate like this than to open a cabinet and grab a plate. That's my choice. That's how I choose to live. I like that feel. Again, warm is like what's really important to me, and this all feels very warm. I chose to put some things into a closed storage, into the pantry, like small appliances. Like I wish I could get that air fryer in because it's just not the vibe, but it can't be, and so it's out. We keep our coffee maker in here, we keep our toaster in here, we keep a blender in here. Those are things that I don't want to see, and I like that certain things can be tucked away so that it's small space so that it can feel tidy, but then the things that we use every day are out and approachable. Okay, so the ceiling is interesting because there were certain structural beams that we had to contend with, and rather than dropping the ceiling or just accepting that it looked funny, we created this pattern, and it mimics on two sides to make sense of a structural experience that needed to exist. And I'll often do that in projects where we'll look at something that sort of has to be there, a soffit, say, and say, well, how can we make it look intentional? So this is an example of taking an architectural imperfection and making it intentional. So like the rest of my house, there is art in here. I chose to hang a piece of art. I'm not sure what else you would do there. I also hang these are wood platters that I use for cheese boards and things and charcuterie. And so I hung them because I loved bringing the warmth of the wood in any way that I can. And so they sort of hang as art, but usable art. We use them all the time. Okay, don't design your house this way, but this is how my house was designed. And for budget reasons, we kept it. and we have rules around it, but we do have a bathroom here. It is a powder room, really meant just to wash your hands and apply your lipstick. I painted it in this amazing dense India yellow. It's a Farrow ball color. It's one of my favorite colors. I'm constantly trying to use it. It can't be used everywhere. This was the perfect application. There is a window behind here that I covered up because sometimes, this might surprise you, windows are in fact not that important. And this was an example of the window being very unimportant. There's also a window over here, and so that's the window that brings light on. That's actually the window that looks out to my neighbor's house, so we never even open it. And so this space, you know, bathrooms don't really need windows. Anyway, there's a bit of funniness to these walls where there was this column. This is another architectural detail that was funny. So I created this custom stone sink, furred it out so we would have additional storage here. And then it just sort of folds into this beam and creates two separate spaces where the toilet is and where the sink is. You'll also see that I did some storage in here as well, which is a hidden but not super hidden medicine cabinet because, you know, I keep the children's like some toothbrushes in here and Tylenol and Band-Aids. And when you live on 4 levels, it's nice to have access to those sorts of things on each level. These sconces are adorable. These sconces and the pendants are Waterworks. I like Waterworks fixtures because they're all, they're typically all designed around historic influence. And so they, you know, work really easily into my home. This is also a Waterworks dash, which is a little funkier of a faucet. And then this mirror I found, it's this amazing vintage place in Europe called, I think it's called Modern actually. And it's just so much fun. Okay, now we're in my entry hall, my entry. This space was actually the space I thought about last. I knew it needed to be neutral because I was going to do all this art up the stairs, which is just a collection of pieces I've been collecting over time, all from different places. And so I love art upstairs. Many people do. And so we did this gallery wall here. So that's like the main thing in this space. This is a navy sisal on our stairs, which has actually worked out really well for us. It's held up very, very nicely, and it gets softer over time. People kind of panic about sisal that it's not as comfy, but it softens over time and is quite durable. This is my favorite thing. Well, first of all, this is also a light I designed, shameless plug, through my Mitzi collection, which is actually meant to be a pendant that hangs, but we actually hung it as a flush mount. And it works perfectly, and it gives this, you can see this like prism-like light, which is really romantic. Okay, this is my favorite thing. There was this space in my entry that was dead, and there were also many shoes in my entry at all times. And so welcome to my shoe cabinet. What I'm about to show you is messy, but concealed. Oh, first of all, the lattice so that it can breathe because we know shoes are stinky. So this had depth. And so now we have a space for shoes. They are labeled with Lucy and Juliet, but they never put them in the right spot. But it doesn't matter. As long as the shoes are in the shoe cubby, I'm happy. This is a mirror I got years and years and years ago when I was working in New York that's also an antique and Chinese and has this like beautiful hand painting on it. And I just love it. I think it's so feminine and pretty. And as a great, you know, in an entry, you want to have a mirror because it's the last moment you get to, you know, check yourself, make sure you don't look insane. And so this is that moment. It's actually long enough that you get nearly a full height mirror, full length mirror. And then this is the original banister to the home, as far as I know. It may not be in fact the original, but it was the one that I received. And rather than changing it because it wasn't sort of maybe exactly what I would have done, I just painted it in this off black color. It's called Railings. It's a Farrow ball color. And do you know, it's just, paint is the greatest camouflage ever. It's like a Band-Aid. Okay, so when you walk into the home, there were these radiators here, which isn't ideal, but I love radiant heat, so we weren't gonna do anything about that. So instead I just had these ledges made. This is a really easy thing to do. I just had these wood ledges made, which essentially just make the space usable. So it created a table where we can put our keys or we can put our mail, but we don't put our keys there because I have this hand. and this hand receives the keys, and this receives the dog leash, and it's quirky and funny and weird, and that's how I like it. So because I knew that the art was going to be the moment in here, and the stairs are this like blue-black, both the runner and the paint, and you know, we continue this like pretty bluish white, and so it's very quiet, I needed a little funk. And so I painted this like another Farrow & Ball color called Preference Red that I love, that is very port in tone, and it's the same color that's on the banquette and the built-ins in the dining room. And so I repeated it here and in the shoe cabinet. And so even though you don't see it in the dining room from this vantage point, it shows up again as a sort of thread, and also as like a little bit of funk in the entry. So this piece of art, which is actually painted, it's a 2x4 that's been wrapped with canvas and painted, is by this Detroit artist called Harold Linton. My grandfather really liked his pieces, and so we have in the family a few of them, and this is one, and it's just such a cool piece. Like, I've hung it vertically before, but I can't hang it vertically in this house because of the molding. So this time I hung it horizontally over the entry to the living room. Again, it's just like a funky, weird, cool moment. Everybody asks about it, but I'll never sell it. Growing up, I didn't always know I wanted to be an interior designer. I did grow up around design. My family, art collectors and art dealers, and intensely appreciative of homes. A lot of the mid-century modern furniture you see here was my grandmother's. She was a collector of Saarinen and Knoll and Plattner, etc. And so there was an emphasis, a sort of quiet emphasis that I didn't understand until I was older. And I ended up kind of having a career change after like a year of working and thinking through what I might want to do. I originally thought I might do fashion, but then someone mentioned interior design, and I thought, oh my God, I had like literally never thought of that as a profession. And I was living in Manhattan at the time, and Parsons had a great program, and so I ended up doing the program at Parsons for interior design, and getting an internship with like a wonderful firm called Mark Hampton under Alexa, and that launched my career. As an interior designer, I love decorating my own home. It doesn't mean I don't get frustrated, and it definitely means that I'm hyper exposed to so much all day that I change my mind too often. But it is really exciting to decorate your own home, because it's, you know, so often we're working with not just the building and not just the environment, but the client, which is great, but we don't get to have as much of a say in the finished product as we do in our own homes. And so I think it's the ultimate creative experience for me as a designer to get to do my own home. And it's also such a privilege to be able to do that. I think if you're looking to try to find your sense of style, what I always tell the younger people in my office to do, and I would offer this to you as well, would be to hyper expose yourself to previous designers. So it's nice to look on Instagram. I don't think that's a bad thing, but Instagram's sort of starting in the center of the story, or even at the end of the story, because it's generally so current. And I think it's important to expose yourself to former designers, likely dead, and start to understand what you like in their room and what you like in their work, and how you might sample that in your own. I've been recently talking a lot about the way that music samples other music and reimagines it. And I feel the same way about design, that we can look to older spaces and former designers, or designers who have passed, and be inspired by their work and see how we might sample that in our own work today. Without that foundation, I think we run the risk of not having innovative, creative work, and instead derivative. And so I think it's just important to understand sort of where we came from, so we can know where we're going, and we can create informed, beautiful work. All right, let's head upstairs and I'll show you some bedrooms. Follow me. This is where my daughters live. They both just turned 7 and 9. So this is a perfect little room for them, though they'd rather have their own rooms, but I like them together. And we actually couldn't fit 2 twin beds, which was my dream. And so we were forced to do a bunk bed, but it actually works out really well. And I think it's pretty sweet. And, they seem to be as happy as 7 and 9-year-old girls can be. The wallpaper is this great British company called Little Green. And I originally had a darker paper because this renovation took me 6 years, and it was cute. But when I put this paper in, it just like opened up the space and made it so fresh. And so that's really exciting. I recently got them these little roller rabbit sheets that they're real excited about. So you can see that like everything matches a little bit, but doesn't totally match. And that's all intentional. I just wanted the space to feel like we have this cute little Vaughn tribal pattern lamp that I love on top of this shade on top of this lamp I've had forever. And then there's kind of like this little riff on a kind of animal-y type pattern that hides all the stuff that happens on this carpet because, you know, I don't have enough rules, and so bad things happen. I painted the trim in this really pretty Lulworth blue, which is another beautiful fair and ball color that feels really bright. It's a bit of a dreary day, so you can't appreciate the brightness, but it's here. This is this old dresser I found for like, I don't know, $100 or something. When my younger daughter, Juliet, was just born, and it's been many colors. It's been rose, but right now it's acid drop, which is also a fair and ball color, and I just like loved the name and also thought it was such a cool, fun moment of brightness and randomness for the room. So that was that. This is these are my grandmother's chairs. You can see they've destroyed them, but they're really comfy. And off of the bedroom is actually a playroom. So rather than split them into two spaces, which I did consider, this has amazing light. This is on top of the sunroom, so it has the same beautiful, you know, wraparound light. And so this is their playroom where they spend hours and hours playing, let's see, American Girl doll and Barbies and art and fighting, whatever else they do in here. It's their space. I think what gives a home soul is your objects. So the idea of putting everything away and making your home feel perfect, but without any visibility to you, is sort of the opposite of what we're trying to do. We like to layer in all the pieces that you've collected over time, books and objects and art and photographs. And that is truly what makes the home yours and a home, because it tells your story. And there's very few places in life now where we get to tell our story because everything's become so digitized. But in our homes, it's not. And I love that records have come back. I have a record player. I felt so sad when everything went to Spotify and you couldn't even understand anyone's music anymore, but now we have a chance to do that again. So I just think all of those things tell the story and they bring not just soul, but also personality into a home. The best compliment that someone could give me about my home is just that it feels really warm and that they never want to leave. We're in one of my favorite rooms in the house. This is our guest room. It's a jewel box of a space, which I think other designers will also tell you are some of the most fun rooms to design, because similar to the sunroom, you really have to figure out how they can function and you feel very ensconced in the space. So I fell in love with the Zack and Fox wallpaper, and it's so viney. Originally I didn't have it on the ceiling, but then I was like, wait, obviously it has to go on the ceiling. This is a trundle bed, so it pops into a king. So when it does need to service two people, it can. It feels a bit like you're sleeping in a boat, but that's okay. They only stay for a night or two, and that's how we like it. My girls love this. They often will sleep in here. So there's like this sweet, detail where you can kind of tuck yourself in and get a lovely sleep. We have great lighting also. So I made certain to have, this is this really cool light from Vaughn that fully pivots. So it's a great reading light. And then this is one of that, similar to the light in the dining room, this Huey's light that's really sweet. And I just felt because it's a nook, it needed to have like really good lighting and the ability to decide how you're using your lighting. And let's see, the wall-to-wall carpet. Also, because it's so small, I really wanted to give it a cozy feeling and to feel, like I said, very ensconced and nooked in the space. And this is a piece that as a little girl lived in my grandmother's bedroom and I just always loved because it's like a little sweet vanity. And so I placed it in here because, well, not much else would fit. And so someone can sit here and do their makeup when they're staying here or, pop on a Zoom call or whatever it is. So you'll notice that there's these sort of blues and port tones in here, which are thematic to the house. Here we've really leaned into the blue with like bits of this port. And then the paint color in here, for those of you wondering, is called sulking room pink. It's also a Farrow & Ball color. I've used exclusively Farrow & Ball colors in this home. And so as I mention them, if I forget to say that, they are Farrow & Ball. Another interesting thing is on the back wall is actually a paper-backed wool fabric. That was because this window was sort of like a funny placement, and I wanted this wall to feel contiguous. And so the Roman shade fabric and the paper, the wallpaper, match, as does the underside of the curtain. So when you pull this and you're sleeping, you feel very nooked in this one color. And then this bit of wave with the piping, the port piping detail and the blue wave, was just kind of like, again, like a little more whimsy, a little more fun, a little more relevant. We're seeing a lot of this shape right now. And so in order to feel relevant, we do sometimes pick up these trends. And so I would say this is kind of a bit of the moment sort of look. I would say the room that transformed the most would likely be the primary bedroom and the primary bath. When I arrived in the home and we purchased the home, it had been renovated, but not to my taste. And it's an attic space. And it had sort of just been done with the footprint that it was given, meaning that it was a very big space, but didn't have delineated space. I'm someone who likes to design in a very deliberate way. I like deliberate delineated spaces. And so I took that and made sense of it. We created a small vestibule so you could arrive because it's an attic and it felt more natural. The bedroom became a little bit more compressed, but I think better sorted. And then the bathroom also tells this really beautiful story where it's almost like 3 rooms in one, where there's a tub and a vanity, so someone can spend time in there alone, and then the shower is sort of tucked away and the water closet is tucked away. So there's a lot of privacy within the space. And then all the finishes that I chose, I also think are very beautiful. There's like drenched with a lot of stone and tile, and that brings in a lot of natural color. Welcome to the primary bedroom. Okay, so this space was fully gutted and fully rethought spatially and also aesthetically. The bedroom is actually quite modest in size, which is intentional. I don't actually love large bedrooms. I started the palette with this William Morris wallpaper. It's, got a lot of texture and pattern, but very tonal in its color. I like ethereal bedroom, so not too many pivots and not too strong. Blues are very soothing to me, so there's a very blue palette in here, also thematic to the home. And again, you'll see this cute little port tone. I did want like a moment of whimsy, and so the bed is that. I have the bed dressed with blush colored linens right now because I like the play off of the port with the pink. Is very fun. And we put in a lot of these sort of arch details, the plate rail. And this is my closet, which you're not allowed to go into because it's the only messy place in my home at all times. And my husband's not allowed in here. And so I had to build him a closet, but there was no space to build him a closet. And so instead I built him these wonderful wardrobes with this antique mirror. This is a sort of fun thing. We originally thought we would put a washer and dryer up here. And then I felt like, well, that's really boring. And that can just live in the basement. And instead, we put a bookshelf. But the bookshelf opens. I don't know what's back here. Anyway, it opens. It's a secret little door, so my kids love to hide in there. But it's fun. But the other point is that I love books in bedrooms. And so I was really excited to be able to put a bookshelf in here and then to make it usable so that I generally take my winter clothes and store them back here and then my summer clothes. And so I switch out seasonally. But all year it's used as a bookcase. So that's nice. This is a filigree pendant we picked up when we were in Morocco. I always call it like the black hole of travel, like when you're traveling at whatever country you're in and you buy things thinking they're going to be perfect to your home, and many times they aren't, but sometimes they are, and this really worked. This gives off a really fun light when turned on at night, also very sort of prismy. The bedside tables are parchment and black, so they're painted black and then they're inlaid with parchment. They're vintage. They fit, you can see, perfectly to the 1/4 inch, which was likely unintentional but worked. And I went to the stone yard and I found, there's actually the stone yard in town called Petra that I love, and found this like amazing tea-stained stone that was just the right size and probably couldn't have been used for much, but was perfect to top the tables with, because I typically like to put stone on tables that are going to be used a lot, like bedside. So when you spill water, you're not spilling directly onto wood or something painted. You know, stone is very protectant. And also it adds a little bit of additional texture to the room. So you can see, and you know, I know this is sort of controversial, but I have a wall-to-wall carpet in my bedroom. I most often put wall-to-wall in bedrooms. I think it's the coziest approach. This is in fact this stark carpet that I love, and it's like a thick woven, almost feels like a cable knit sweater, and I just like love the texture of it. It feels handsome. It's so soft and cozy. I don't know, it's so chic. And it's actually worn very, very well. So because this was an attic and we were converting an attic, or we were actually taking what was already converted as an attic but didn't have much character and trying to make it feel like the rest of the home, we really needed to give the space architectural details. That's where the plate rail comes in, which historically would have been used to hang art, but you know, I use it as a way to delineate where the wallpaper finishes and where the paint begins. And then the arches, I really wanted arch doors, but it just wasn't in the budget. And so this is a great hack where you can use the arch of the trim, you know, add a solid panel, and then you just have straight, you know, rectilinear doors, but they present as arched pieces. Behind this door is the bathroom. All right, welcome to the bathroom. All right, I knew I wanted to plaster the space. I also knew I wanted some amazing stone and some color, so we did it all. I even got a tub in. I didn't think I'd be able to get a tub in, but I got a tub in, which is magic because we use it all of the time. Mainly my children, but still, every single night. They don't use their own bathtub. That's a different story. So this window was here. It had trim on it before. I ripped the trim down, you know, and puttied in and plastered in all of this beautiful plaster work, and that helped to make this look less contemporary and more a part of the arched theme in the house. We found some space to put towels. Again, the idea that they're just out and easy to get to, I actually like. And nooked in this little tub with a big slab of stone on this side and a mimicking slab of stone on the other side. Most of the tile is I never know how to say if it's zellige or zellage, but it's a Moroccan painted tile that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. So I did this sort of dusty rose, found this amazing vintage rug accidentally. This little British hall chair, I love hall chairs. It's very beaten up and I like that about it. I also find storage everywhere. Behind here, storage. Behind here, full height storage. So again, big into storage. And then the bathroom actually slopes, which could be problematic. And so when I thought about the design of the bathroom, I was like, well, what spaces can be in a slope? A water closet, and so our water closet has a sloped ceiling, and a shower. And showers, one of the things people get wrong is they make these really big showers and then they're really, really cold. So having more of a sloped shower actually helps sort of bring the heat and contain the heat. And because the ceiling's shorter, the glass actually reaches the top and there's no ventilation. So it keeps the shower quite warm in a really good way. And we sort of just maxed out the tile in there. And then built this beautiful wood piece in this barrel, which houses hampers on one side and additional storage drawers on the other side. You can see that I do all these. I continue to have Forbes and Lomax in here. I build in both in the bedroom on the built-in and also here these, I think they're juniper switches so that you have access to outlets, but in a beautiful way. So I love all these little details, and I'm always thinking with both myself and my clients, how are people living? What do they need? I'm standing here. What am I doing here? What do I need? And so you're seeing a lot of that as you walk through my home. The word home means to me just like a very, I guess like a safe, warm place to land where you want to invite your family and your friends into it. It's a very personal space, it's a very intimate space, so maybe home means intimacy to me. Because it is a very private space. I feel lucky that people invite me into their private spaces, and I become very close to my clients because it is such an intimate experience.
Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Annie. Welcome to my home in Washington, D.C. Let me show you around.
This summer, spend the hottest months of the year in style with Homeworthy as we visit the most extraordinary homes around the world. From the sun-soaked shores of the Hamptons to the classic beachfronts of Nantucket to the vibrant courtyards of Morocco, be sure to subscribe to Homeworthy's summer series to make every day feel like a vacation. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name is Annie Elliott, and I'm an interior designer in Washington, D.C. Welcome to my home. Funnily enough, John and I had been to this house before it even went on the market. We knew the people who lived here, and they had us over to a dinner party. And we came over and we were like, what is this place? I mean, to us in a condo, it seemed so huge, and the dinner party was so fun. And we just said, gosh, what do we have to do to like live in a house like this? And then years passed, and the people put the house on the market, and we snapped it up, and here we are today. I would really describe our home as happy. I know that doesn't sound very descriptive, but it is a mix of things, but I don't want to say eclectic because that sounds unintentional. I don't want to say whimsical because that sounds too fanciful. But the truth is there is a lot of saturated color here. We do have pattern on pattern. I want people to feel welcome when they come in, of course. But I also like the formality of this house. I like that it has tall ceilings. We made a very deliberate decision not to break down the wall between the kitchen and the dining room, so we still have a fairly formal dining room. So I strive for this funny balance between having people feel warm and comfortable and welcome, and we have so much fun here, but also we've retained the grace of the original house, the graciousness of it. And that's one of the things I really love. This is our living room, and one of the things I really love most about it is that it is comfortable. I like to think that it's stylish also, a lot of different colors, warmth, but there are a lot of places to sit, and every single place is comfortable. So the walls are a light blushy pink for this north-facing room. It really warms things up. Large a sofa as we could reasonably fit, and it has a bench seat which encourages 3 people to sit there. Really, a bench seat or 3 seat cushions is more inviting for 3 people than 2. And if you really want to seat a lot of people, you need to create the space. The decoration of the room actually started with this rug. I think that vintage and antique rugs are the answer to everything, to be honest. They show nothing. They wear away kind of charmingly. They're all wool. So they're natural, and they just have so many colors that you can pull from or choose to ignore. So the rug is kind of a tealy color, and this is definitely more of a grassy green. They're kind of clashy, but somehow it all works. So that's one of the things I think that makes this room sort of fun and welcoming, is that it doesn't take itself too seriously, you know? So we've got the colors that are kind of clashy, and then we've also incorporated several different patterns. And so we've got this kind of, medallion-y pattern on the rug, and then we used a plaid on this chair. I love plaid so much. So the plaid, we've got the solid sofa. I didn't want to over pillow the sofa since we have a gallery wall, and I'll talk about that. But I didn't want to put too many pillows on the sofa. Let's be honest, when somebody sits on it, if you're crowding in, the pillows are going to go on the floor anyway. and that is fine, but I didn't need too many there. So we had a lot of fun with this settee, actually. At one point, we did have 2 chairs here, and that was great. That worked really well. But I did want to be able, I have the holidays in mind, I did want to be able to squeeze 3 people here if we needed to. And so I designed this settee just to be exactly the size we needed, again with the bench seat. And so you really can fit 3 people on if you're willing to be cozy, if you've had a couple of glasses of eggnog. And the pattern of it really works because I'm a big believer in varying the scale of things. And so we've got this great, like, big floral scale pattern on the drapes. We've kind of a medium to large scale on the rug. And then I paired this with a small geometric scale here. We got the plaid over there. So you're mixing florals with stripes and geometrics, florals with small geometric patterns. It's all about the mix, really. And so that's why I think that this smaller geometric pattern really works here in this context. Again, not too many pillows. 1 was plenty. And a tiny little chair over here, which is shockingly comfortable, but that can kind of be scooched around if you want to bring people closer, if you're having cocktail hour or something like that. One of the things I really love about our living room is this gallery wall. And this, like everything else, has gone through some iterations. But what I really love is that every single piece here has a story. None of it is very precious. None of it was expensive. In fact, some were gifts. But the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, right? So you have a piece my friend did. These were from my grandmother. That actually was from Sears and Roebuck in the 1950s or 60s. If you know Sears, if you don't, you can look it up. This was by an artist friend in Philadelphia. So, you know, all of these together look great. I used to have a large oil painting here of some egrets, and they really looked fantastic on this wall. I wanted to move them somewhere else. But when I pulled them out of the gallery wall and I hung them on their own, they didn't work. They just looked shabby and they didn't hold the wall very well. So really the mix, it's all about the mix. Corner fireplaces are so tricky. I mean, usually when you have a normal fireplace, it makes sense to have all of the furniture in the room arranged around it, right? It is obvious that the fireplace is the focal point of the room. When you have a corner fireplace, especially in a room that is not gigantic, that becomes impossible. I really tried to have a sofa angled toward it or 2 little chairs. If the room were much, much bigger, I could have 2 tiny chairs next to the fireplace and kind of call attention to it. There just isn't space in this room. And so I feel lucky because the mantle is tall. It doesn't look like we're completely hiding the fireplace. We're just not giving it the attention that it really would prefer to have. So anyway, a quirky thing about this fireplace is that there is such a large distance between the firebox and the mantle. And I just came up with the idea just to hang something there to give you something to look at, maybe create a little depth. So this little painting, I think, does the trick just fine. I wouldn't hang anything really intricate there. You just want it to be there. You look at it, you look somewhere else. That's it. But corner fireplaces, man, they are tough to work with. One of the ways that I ensure that in this historic setting that we are not falling into a time capsule, even though I have some antiques around, is to bring in really strategic pieces of modern furniture. So this coffee table, by the way, not a huge fan of glass coffee tables normally, but the sort of quasi-Danish modern metal base, not wood, with the glass top really was a nice contrast to the other wood pieces in this room. It just adds a little bit of contrast, a little bit of levity, really works well. We also have a tiny chair that was my grandmother's that I've reupholstered quite a number of times, but she did the needlepoint on the back of it. But on the front, I just keep changing the fabric to keep the entire chair kind of fun. So I highly recommend doing that kind of mix of having a few very old pieces, but then having a couple more contemporary pieces to kind of balance everything out. Now let's go into the dining room. This is our dining room. Now this room faces south, so it does get a lot more natural light than the front of the house does. And so I felt that we could go pretty dark and rich on the walls. This is a paper by Schumacher, and what I love about it is that the blue is so interesting. It is not turquoise, it's not cornflower, it's not navy, it's not royal, it's not cadet. I mean, it is very hard to describe this blue. I don't have it anywhere else, which is why I think it works. So I really, really love it. The large scale pattern is great for this room. Our ceilings are almost 10 feet. And so, you know, we need a large pattern on the walls, which helps it feel a little more modern also. Funnily enough, the color of the woodwork was here before I did the wallpaper. In its past life, this room had natural grass cloth on the walls, and I painted the woodwork a very dark blue. It was fine. It was fine, but it wasn't setting the world on fire, and I wanted to have something a little bit more dramatic. So again, with this wallpaper, I think we did that. There also is, in this wallpaper, some of the paint is a bit metallic, so it does catch the light. I can't lie and say, oh, it just is huge sparkle and brightens everything up, but it is an interesting little detail when you're sitting at the table and you see these little flashes of light. I really love it. One of the things I really love about this room is we have a very successful mix, I think, of antiques and more modern furnishings. So for example, over here we have this sideboard, an English sideboard that belonged to my grandparents. Love it. But then in the middle, this burl wood piece is from the 60s or 70s. I got this from an antique store in Michigan, and it's the perfect size for the room. We need something very, very long. This is our only place to eat. We do not have an eat-in kitchen. So this room has to be able to accommodate many people or just a few people. So when you have a table like this, I mean, our family sort of eats around here, and it feels fine because it's not too wide of a table. We can be kind of close to each other. But then, of course, when you have a lot of people, there's place for a lot of people to sit. So I love the burl wood. It makes for an interesting texture to look at. There's a lot of visual real estate here. And this is lighter in tone than like a walnut. So that helps kind of keep the room a little bit lighter than it would be otherwise. These chairs I absolutely love. We've had the two end chairs literally for 22 years, and they look great and they are still so comfortable. They're very contemporary, but they're leather, so they wipe right off. They're great if you have kids with sticky fingers, and they're just so simple and clean lined. I really feel like they can go with anything antique or modern. I recommend them a lot to my clients, so they're all laughing at me right now because they know how much I love these chairs. The rug in this room, as in the living room, is another vintage rug. And again, it shows nothing. It will last forever. I really think that this kind of rug is terrific in rooms that are going to get a lot of traffic, a lot of action, if you know what I mean. So this rug, I think I got it on eBay, to be honest, and it was a steal. If you're not too picky about the colors of a rug, so for example, if you don't care if the red is like a cherry red or more of an orangey red, buying a vintage rug online is really a great thing to consider. Once you get into really needing a specific shade of something, you really kind of have to see the piece in person before buying it. But if you can be a little bit flexible, as I was able to be here, you can get a very nice large rug for a really good price. So anyway, that is the rug. And this little piece here, I think I bought it to stage something or to style something. And it is not well made. Don't look at it too closely, but isn't it perfect right here? I mean, it's a serving surface for us. It holds linens and other things and candles. It just is the perfect little piece for this funny spot. I love that it's red, but not everything in a room has to be expensive in order to really look good in context. Do you know what I mean? So this has been a very trusty piece to have. I also think it looks great under these English botanical prints. I'm quite a fan of anything engraved or English, to be honest. So anyway, I just think that this whole little vignette works really nicely. The light fixture is from the 1980s, and my mother-in-law actually snagged it for me from a friend of hers who was moving, and I really like it. I mean, it's kind of like nothing else in the room, but we've hung it especially high because the room is very off-kilter. Very little actually lines up in this room, and so if we'd hung it very low, it actually would have emphasized how not lined up things are. When you hang it higher, you just don't really notice the strong lines of things. Kind of hard to explain, but I really love this fixture. The crystal is fun, but not too formal, but I like it. Right off of the dining room is our powder room. Now, is it ideal to have a powder room right off your dining room? No, it is not. However, I'm very grateful to have a powder room at all. So, when we first moved in, there was actually a shower back here. I mean, maybe this whole building was divided into apartments at some point. I have no idea. But we took out the shower and instead said, yippee, what space, let's put an actual piece of furniture in here, which turns out to be very handy for hand towels and things like that. So we have this crazy, crazy wallpaper called Cabaret, which is just so busy. It gives you something to look at while you're in here. Not a big space, again. And just kind of modernized it with all of the modern elements, put in a nice, cute little light fixture. It's not the most brightly lit room in the world, and you know what? It doesn't need to be. So that is our little powder room. Welcome to the foyer of our home. And I have to say that I love the grassy green wallpaper that we've used here. It's kind of a quasi-geometric pattern, but it's also a little natural. It could be feathers, it could be just a geometric shape, but the color is so warm and inviting, and everyone who comes in really, really loves it. So it's one of my favorite things about our house, I will be honest. And then because we had small children and pets, a stair runner was really important. It also makes things much cozier. And so we used to have at one point a very light colored stair runner. Do not recommend, especially if you have kids or red wine or anything. I don't know what I was thinking. But anyway, this stair runner is by Missoni, and it looks very dramatic when you hold a sample of it because it has all these different colors in it. But when you get it on the stairs, it's actually, I mean, it blends right in. It's quite dark. It hides everything. It's nice and flat. So, nothing gets caught in it. So it really was a great selection, I think. And it's fun with the wallpaper too. This is the butler's pantry. So not very big, as you can see, but this is great, great storage and for display for some things that we don't use very often. This is fantastic to have as a bar. So when we're having a party or even when we're having people over for dinner, it's great to be able to get the drinks out of the main areas and just have people here, make the mess, have the limes and everything. So this works really, really well for that. And on this side, we have, obviously pantry cabinets, a lot of storage in here. But this is kind of a fun thing that I love about the house. So this is actually the doorway to our basement, which I think is kind of fun. When we have contractors here, the poor guys, they never know where to go. So anyway, that's our little secret, our little Harry Potter moment. Like many designers, I think, I'd always been interested in interior design, but to be honest, I just didn't know how to go about it. I grew up in a solid middle-class family in upstate New York, and no one I knew used interior designers. So I went into art history. I went into museums. That was my first career, sort of design adjacent, if you will. And I did that for a while, and I really loved it. I loved, grad school and art history and all of that. Love museums to this day. But I was lacking this connection to people. You know what I mean? When you work in a museum and you're working with art, you really are working with people experiencing art, but you're not right in there. And the thing I love about interior design is I really am helping people love where they live. I mean, that is the point. I really believe in making people happy, spreading joy by making their surroundings comfortable, reflective of them, functional, but also really beautiful. And I mean, ultimately, I want all my clients' friends to be very, very jealous of them. So that's kind of behind the scenes how I got here. I'm very excited that I've written this handbook, the Essential Decorating Handbook. It's called My Neighbor Saw Me Naked and Other Reasons You Need Drapes. And I wrote it because my friends and my clients were asking me the same questions again and again. I mean, logical questions such as, how big should my rug be? And, how bright should a lamp be? How high should I hang my chandelier? Things we all want to know. But I thought, okay, I'm answering these questions again and again. I think everybody must have these questions. And so I simply started to write down the answers. I love to write. I've had a blog for a long time, and I love explaining things. And so the book really takes you through the most important things you need to know. So we don't go into 11 different kinds of lampshades because you don't need to know, believe me. But it talks about what kind of light is best for what kind of room, and what size rug does work best, and how high do you hang your art, how do you style a tabletop, all of the things we really want to know. And what I really love about it is that in addition to being very helpful, I say, it's a precious little object. You know what I mean? It is this tiny book that you can put in your purse, carry it around. I will be totally honest, I keep one on my desk because I can never remember watt conversions, LED to incandescent. And so I keep it there to remind myself so I can refer to it. And that's really the point of the book. This is the kitchen, which we renovated about 10 years ago. And we made the very conscious decision not to break down the wall between the kitchen and the dining room. And we also made the decision not to bump out. Now, I will be honest, I did want to do that at first. I wanted to have a little eating area, have kind of a breakfast nook out there. We didn't end up doing that. I was just getting impatient with permitting and things like that. And I thought, well, we can do this part and we'll go back to it later if we want to. Well, obviously we're never going to go back to it. But, you know, we did this before the pandemic. And when the pandemic hit, we were very happy to have as much porch space out there as we have. So anyway, so it's still a galley kitchen. We're in a row house. It's still a galley kitchen. But the way we did it just works so well for us. I mean, galley kitchens are very practical in a way because you don't have far to go between sides. One thing when we were redoing it, as my husband said, I don't want any cabinets on the stove wall. And I was like, well, that's a very specific and strange thing to request, but okay. He asked for so little. I felt like we should accommodate. So I really wanted this whole stove wall to be a statement. And it took me a long time to figure out what that was going to be. I did not want to do a mural. I can't tell you why. I just didn't want to do one. I thought that would be very expected and I didn't want to do that. I did not want to do any kind of mural with tiles. Just didn't want to do that either. So I hit upon the idea of doing large porcelain panels that were painted. Chinoiserie, I wanted red, I wanted birds, the whole thing. This is now reverse painted glass, and I am so delighted with it. I partnered with some artists here in DC who do this kind of thing. They also do murals, but we came up with the design. And then they had to paint it backwards on this glass. It's called aigle-mise, and it's actually a very old, an old method of art making. But this is all custom, of course. So these are birds from the eastern shore of Maryland, where we go, eastern bluebird. The colors are what we wanted, and there are tiny little hints of gold leaf in here, which just catches the light. So it was an investment, it was a decision, and it makes me happy every single day. It was worth it. So that's the big thing about our kitchen. Then, of course, I didn't know what to do on the other side. So this is about the third thing we've tried. This is just a antique mirrored glass tiles. So it kind of is the same vibe as the other backsplash. Doesn't compete, reflects. I think it works really well. There was no way I was going to do white subway tile across from this baby. So I'm very happy with how it turned out. It may sound strange that I wanted to make an already small space feel cozy, but I really like red in a kitchen, which is why I wanted to use it so much on the backsplash. But we also put a runner in here. So again, just a vintage red runner, which I think really warms up the space. People have very mixed feelings about carpets in kitchens. Totally understand. We have this cleaned quite often, I have to say. But visually, it really warms up the space and gives you something interesting to look at. Again, it's not a big room. And so I just like the way it kind of connects it all, brings it all together. Tilly clearly likes it. She looks great in red. So, we're very happy about that. So that is our tiny but effective kitchen. And now let me show you our tiny urban oasis. You want to come? You want to come? This is our urban garden, and we were so happy to have this porch during the pandemic, let me tell you. So it's quite a generous covered space, which we love. We can have meals out here, and then we can also go down here if we want to have a drink with some friends. I also actually do a lot of writing from here, so this has been a nice little perch also. We made the decision to go ahead and hang some art out here. This wall just seemed very big and very empty. So this is a painting on board, and we bought it and we just said, we're gonna hang it outside. It will deteriorate over time. That's just what's gonna happen. And it actually has been there for like 6 or 7 years, and it's holding up remarkably well, I think, as it's covered. But we call it David. It has some very long title, but we just call it David. And it makes this very homey and a little edgy, if I do say so myself. This is such a nice spot to sit and have a little drink. It's really nice to be down in the garden. Again, we're right in the middle of Washington, D.C., so we feel so lucky to have any green space at all. But here we're really enveloped. It's really nice to have. So when we first moved in, our baby twin daughters were 6 months old. And so we really didn't know what to do with all of this space. And so it was really fun to imagine what we were going to use the different rooms for. Because they were so small, we ended up putting them in the biggest bedroom, where they had, first they shared a crib and then they had 2 cribs and the whole thing. But we've moved the rooms around a lot in terms of their function. So we're in a row home. It's a 1910 Wardman row house. That's a thing in Washington, D.C. There was a developer named Harry Wardman. So it's from 1910, so very vertical. So the second floor is quite open. We did not make those changes, but the previous owners had opened up the second floor. So it really is one large space. And that space has undergone a lot of changes. So originally, when the girls were little, part of it was their little play area, and then we had the TV area. And then we started using the fireplace, and so we angled things a different way. And then the girls got older, and so they wanted more space to play. So it really, it helps to be nimble when you're thinking about how to use the spaces in your home. And I always encourage clients to reevaluate at certain points in life. Are you still using this room the way you started to use it when you moved in? So this whole space, as with all of the row houses on this block, would have been 2 separate rooms once upon a time when it was built in 1910. We did not take down this wall, nor did the previous owners whom we knew. But nonetheless, we are the beneficiaries of this one large space. And we have used this space for so many different things. I really do encourage people to rethink their use of space every once in a while, and this has changed a lot. So when we first moved in, our children were very, very tiny, and so we had a sofa here really dividing the room. And this side was their little play area, and then this was the fireplace, or, wait for it, the TV area. This cabinet right here used to house our television, which was about this wide and much deeper than that. So, times do change. When we did move in, this whole wall, there were some built-in bookcases, but they were very small and puny and kind of falling apart. And there was a fireplace, but the surround was pink granite. So we decided to change that. So our architect friends, whom we hired to kind of redesign this whole thing, came up with this concrete fireplace surround idea. And they literally poured this in their backyard, which I think is hilarious. Just the idea of these sitting in their backyards, just waiting to cure or cook or whatever it is. So we built all of this, and it really opened up the space. You don't think of things, a wall-to-wall thing is opening up the space, but it really did. And so that helped us really define this as a living area, and then we could do whatever we wanted over here. So today, this half of the room is my home office. My real interior design office is somewhere else. But when I am here, this is where I am working. And this truly, on this side, is the family room area. This wall was only recently painted green. It was a very nice change from the bright red-orange that we'd had for a long time. I loved that, but we really needed a change. So I kind of calmed everything down by putting down this antelope patterned rug. And it's a custom cut broadloom, so you can see we cut it around the fireplace hearth to really make the rug feel big. The rug makes the space feel bigger because it can stretch into all of the corners. So that was a big change. That, along with the wall color, really changed the whole feel of the space. We didn't over pillow the sofa, again, because these often end up on the floor, but I do think it's important to have some pillows in a family room. As with all of our rooms, I do try to have some fun art everywhere. And so this piece is by an artist friend of mine named Liza Houston, and it's collage. And actually in grad school, I did a lot of work on photo montage and collage. So it's just kind of funny that this is the same medium, but, you know, painted pieces of paper and cut it out. And what's awesome and funny is that this looked so different on a red wall. We had this here when the wall was red, and it looked fantastic, but completely different. So it really pops now, which I love. Another sort of fun thing about changing this wall color is that the window treatments have new life all of a sudden. Again, when this was red, they were very matchy. They looked great. These are Roman shades that we had made a very long time ago at this point. But I think that the gray background here is a little bit greeny. It really works. I mean, it was on purpose that we did that, but it's nice that it turned out as well as it did. These Roman shades are actually lined and interlined. They're very, very thick and heavy. Again, this house is from 1910 and it is a bit drafty at times. So in the winter, we put these all the way down and you're snug as a bug in a rug. It's really quite amazing. So, but I was very pleased that so many of the things we had really survived this transition to the new rug and the new wall color. These chairs, for example, we've had these forever. And in fact, these belonged to the people we bought the house from, which is so hilarious. Different upholstery, but these chairs have been in this building for a very long time. So I bought this orange fabric just because I liked it a long time ago. I'm trying not to do that so often anymore, but this was a long time ago. I found it, it was on sale. I bought whatever yardage they had. I had no idea what I would do with it. Years later, I found this fabric also. This is Schumacher's Pearl River. And I just decided to recover these chairs. And so the backs of them are in the Pearl River. And then we did this on the inside. And I think they really turned out well. They're kind of sweet and mid-century feeling. They're incredibly comfortable, which of course is what every chair should be. But I love how these really work with all of the new decisions we made. I have twin daughters, and when they started high school, they each claimed that they wanted to redo their rooms. And so I really am a firm believer that when you have teenagers, you should just let them do whatever they want to do in their rooms. So that's what we did. So this is Ruthie's room. I almost said my younger daughter. She's younger by like 45 seconds. But this is Ruthie's room. And she wanted to do a wallpaper accent wall, and she chose this by Manuel Canavas, which I thought was quite a sophisticated choice. Anyway, the room is tiny, so we did one wall in this, and then she has a nice day bed, so she can hang out here, and of course, it's where she sleeps. But it's a very sweet room. We really tried to make the most of it. So this is our other daughter's bedroom, Georgie, and she created her own accent wall of sorts by doing a gallery wall of all of these bits and bobs that are meaningful to her. So we really let her do whatever she wants, and we are under strict orders never ever to change it or take it down. So we will have that conversation another day, but for now, this is her wall. When we let our daughters decorate their bedrooms, we also renovated their bathrooms so they would have a little more space, teenage girls. We really wanted to preserve what we could from this 1910 vintage bathroom with the clawfoot tub, and we just couldn't do it. It was so impractical. So we kept it charming, I hope, by doing this really pretty emerald green tile. The walls are very light blue. And other than that, it's just kind of a cheerful, happy place for them to get ready in the morning. So when I think about what home means and what it means to me, there is the building and there's the stuff in it, which obviously I love because I do this for a living. But really, home is about the people in it, you know, and about the experiences you have here. You know, I do a lot of social media, and I was sort of making fun once about the signs that people put in their houses, like eat, you know, and live, laugh, love. You know, I'm so against those. But I also mentioned, you know, if a sign says home, then if you don't know that you're already home, well, you know, you have bigger problems. And one person wrote in the comments, they said, you know, not everyone has a home. And that sign might really represent to them that they are home. But it's true, it did choke me up when I saw that. And it's meaningful, it really stuck with me.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.